Platform 17 for the 1832 South Central service to Brighton, fast to East Croydon, then Red Hill, Gatwick Airport, Three Bridges, Morecambe, Haywards Heath, Wivelsfield, Burgess Hill, Essex, Preston Park and Brighton. Customers for London Road, Walscombe, Falmer and Lewis, also Hove and stations to Worthing should change at Brighton.
Bad tattoos on another tongue's skin.
Right. Customer, London Road, Ormscote, Falmouth and Lewis, also Hove and stations to Worthing should change at right.
Hello, everyone, hello. How are we, huh? Got you in 144p? Hell yeah. That's what I'm talking about, man. We're rocking 144p all year. $144p all year. So today we got best worst case scenario for every team. Make sure you guys like this stream. I spent a long time on that. But that's good though, because that helped lay the groundwork for my true predictions next week. So this was basically the most labor intensive one. My AC went out. Well, I would say that that's fine in October, but it is 90 fucking degrees outside in the middle of October. So, you know, you're never safe. Oh. I will not be silent on my love for Charlie XCX, man. Will not be silent about my love for Charlie XCX. Brat is, in my opinion, this album of the year. It's the album I've listened to more than any other album. I love it. Remix album dropped last night. And fuck, it's good, man. Like, god damn, it's good. She is good. She might be the GOAT. She really might be. Live right now, Klay Thompson's Mavs debut. Best and worst case scenario for every NBA team. I'm happy. I'm excited about this one. If you don't get in here, you're no longer my friend. ... That simple. Get in. Everything is Romantic was my favorite song on Brat. Okay. Incredible song. Bad tattoos on another tongue's skin. You know, nobody can do it like her, right? And I was worried about the remix. It's fucking incredible. I mean, she doesn't miss. She doesn't miss, man. Slightly seems like an I like all music except country guy. That's exactly what I am. Exactly what I am. And that's not even true. I can't say that I never like any country music. No, I don't like Post Malone's country. See, that's the exact type of country I don't like. You know, I don't like Post Malone's attempt at country music that much. What's that song? I had some help. I couldn't do this by myself. Now, Casey Musgraves can get into it. Can get into some Casey. Get into some Casey Musgraves. You know, the Highwayman. I mean, how do you not like the Highwayman? Like George Strait, yes, obviously. But that's more, you know, my what I consider country. Like when somebody says country music to me, what pops in my head is the pop country that's utter dog shit, right? This just fucking object. I think it's actually, and you know, music is maybe the most subjective thing on the planet. Well, I don't know if there's something more subjective than music, right? With that being said, pop country pop, whatever the fuck you want to call it, is objectively terrible. Like, I listen to it and I cannot fathom how anyone enjoys it. It's the one type of music. I can listen to anything else. You know, there's some, you know, some of the newer hip hop that's very heroin. It sounds like they're all on heroin, right? Which is ironic because that's like the name of the labels. It's like the name of the music, isn't it? Like opium something. Where it's not for me, but I do get it. I get how it's kind of a vibe. Death metal is a little too, like a black metal, death metal. I can't really get into it, but I do get it. And there's some times where I listen to it and it fucking gets me going. The pop, what was that guy's name? Oh man, he was like really big in the early 2010s. The country musician. Oh, I mean, it's the worst. Prog metal's incredible. I mean, Tool's prog metal, is it not? Is Tool not prog metal? Tool's my favorite band of all time. Tejano music, I can get behind some Tejano music. Sally's not opium, heartbreaking for all the 15-year-olds. See, I kind of like some Playboy Cardi, but yes, Tool, prog metal is incredible. I love prog metal. Tool is my favorite band. Full stop. You know, one of those things that I thought over time I'd kind of grow out of it because some of the lyrics are very, some of the lyrics can be very, I don't know, I'm 13 and this is deep, but fuck, it's still good. I like Nine Inch Nails as well. God, what's the name of the big country, radio country star, early 2010s? Had some of the worst. No, it wasn't Luke Bryan. 2010s country music. I like Pearl Jam. Fuck me. I'm gonna be so. No, not Florida Georgia Line. Blake Shelton. No. Was it Luke Bryan? Maybe. I can't even remember a song. Yo, Slight Bust. What's up? Jason Aldean. I think it was Jason Aldean. I actually 100% think it was Jason Aldean. Yes, that's it. Try that in a small town? Wait. This might not be him. This is the guy who did the Try It in a Small Town. No, Dirt Road Anthem. This is him for sure. This is for sure him. Oh, yeah. Memory lane up in the headlights. That's actually not even as bad as who's Kane? What the fuck is that guy's name? Kane Brown. Oh man, I'm sorry. There's no way anyone actually enjoys that. And if you do, please listen to more music. That's all I would say. Please listen to more music. Okay. And while we're talking about music, I have a hot music take. I was listening to this album earlier today. Well, I wasn't listening to it. It popped up. And you know what it is? You want to know what I think it is about those country musicians? And tell me if I'm wrong. Yes, I feel like Country Girl, I Love You. Country girls like that song. And country girls like that. And so country boys get into it. You see where I'm getting at? It was Big Green Tractor. Is Big Green Tractor Jason Aldean? Yeah, Jason Aldean is who I was talking about. You look like a Michael Jackson fan. Who doesn't like Michael Jackson? Does Michael, like, just music-wise, does Michael Jackson not have just the highest approval rating? Like, how do you not like Michael Jackson? Like, a Michael Jackson song comes on and it's just like, fuck, this guy was good. Slightly Tate McRae or Charlie XCX. That's not even a competition, man. I mean, are we joking? That's like asking me to compare LeBron James to... compare prime LeBron James to Franz Wagner. Franz Wagner has his moments. I like him, right? It's okay. I'm okay. It's okay. I'm okay. I don't need it anyway. All right, I'm here for it. But come on, man. Charlie XCX. She's on some prime LeBron James shit right now, man. Like, she just is. Anyways, my music take, I was listening to, and I'm not going to sit here and try to pretend to be something that I'm not. My age group, my demographic, grew up listening to Drake, and I still like Drake. I don't give a fuck. Okay? I know it's cool to not like him currently. I genuinely don't care. I'm tired of pretending that Honestly Nevermind wasn't a banger album. I'm tired of pretending it. I'm looking for this one picture of second kid diddler you fangirled over the last 90 seconds. Kate Bush or Charlie XCX? All right, see. That's like comparing. I know I just said Charlie XCX was on her LeBron James run, and I know I just said, I don't know, I've said LeBron's my GOAT. Let me rephrase that. Kate Bush is Wayne Gretzky. Okay. Just undisputed GOAT. Right? Drake has some good songs. I don't get the hate for him just because he's been popular for so long. I mean, I've said it before, dude. That beef was so funny. Not Like Us is so bad. Like, it's such a bad fucking song. It is the most annoying song of the last 13 years, maybe. And that includes, what was that one song? That includes any song. That includes all of Speeding Bullet to Heaven from Kid Cudi. Euphoria is really good. Yes, Euphoria is very good. That's a very good song. No, not Like Us fucking sucks. Horrible song. That song's gonna age like milk. Seriously. This is Charlie XCX currently. This is the type of shit she's on. All right, 20 minutes into the stream. God damn it, dude. Of course. I mean, not like that is bad, but Drake's answer was worse. What was Drake? Family Ties, Family Matters. What was the name of it? Family Matters was the best song of that whole thing by a lot. Like, by a lot. As a song, yes. As a diss track, not. No, I think as a diss track. Maybe Euphoria was a little bit better. Not Like Us is terrible, man. It's fucking bad. What? Ugh, I don't want to hear that ever again, man. Never scream pedophile in my fucking ear again at a bar or at a public gathering. Ever the fuck again. So I lost 1.5 thousand gambling a week ago. What do I do now? Retina, go to your mom. Tell her that you're sorry that you put her credit card on your FanDuel account. Remove it from the FanDuel account and stop gambling. Okay? Go back to buying Fortnite skins. It was on stage. Can somebody explain? I know I've said this time and time again, but my God, I'm just so Twitter's just become such a funny place to me. Are people putting steak ads on memes? Has anyone else noticed that? highly political, needs to run for office and ban gambling. I don't mind gambling being legal. I have said it time and time again. It needs to be treated like cigarettes. It's legal, but nobody talks about how cool it is. Everyone talks about how fucking lame it is, but you can go about and do it if you want. Like, that's what it needs to be. That's what vaping needs to be. We need to publicly shame vaping. I get vaping. You know, I have people in my life who smoke cigarettes forever, switch to vaping and help them get off cigarettes. That's completely cool. And I don't care if you do vaping, but it's just like, for some reason, right? Cigarette smokers, there's a certain level of, you know, it's a disgusting habit, but a certain level of class to it. They know that they have to do it separately. They know they can't be around people when they do it, right? Vapors are just like, here, dude, here's this blueberry cranberry directly into your nostril. Like, oh, thanks. Smells like shit. All right, Klay Thompson, debut for the Dallas Mavericks last night in the preseason. I don't have the box score in front of me, so I don't know fully what he did. But our guy, the Mavs blog, you know, not subscribed to the Mavs blog. Whoops. Throw him a subscription right there. He's got us covered right here. Klay Thompson's first game as a Maverick. Now, I did rewatch this game today. Some thoughts about the Mavs game. Rebounding was a concern. Kind of makes you remember how good of a rebounder Luka is. Obviously, they're also without PJ Washington, so some of that size was desperately missed last night. The Utah Jazz, let me pull up the box real quick. The Utah Jazz got 15 offensive rebounds, just killed the Mavericks on the glass. But I actually liked what I saw from Klay, who finished the night with 10 points on 3 of 9 shooting, 3 of 5 from deep, 3 assists I thought was interesting. And honestly, I thought he played some pretty good. I thought that he played some pretty good defense, which was the most surprising thing for me. So we're going to watch some of these clips here as one big happy family. That's not Klay Thompson. That was nasty, though. I thought Gafford played really, really well. Ford F-150.
First road trip of the preseason, and lineups are presented by Zions Bank, the official bank of the Utah Jazz. And how about the Jazz, T? They beat Houston Monday night, down 19, won by 9. And I'm thinking about Klay.
Did you seriously rewatch a preseason game? You're crazy. I didn't watch it live. So I just wanted to go back and see what I missed. I was half watching.
Thompson's feelings right now. Run through that Kessler screen. George, head down
I thought Lively played some really good defense in this game as well. See, what's funny is
on the baseline. Shot jumps off the rim.
it's a good shot for Klay. Missed it, but you know those are the shots we like. He'll make it. He did say after the game that he was very nervous. It was the most nervous he's been since, did he say, the 2016 finals? Now this is a play here, and I think the clip was a little bit late, but I like that, a little slip right there from Klay Thompson. I think Klay, and that's a really nice pass. Let me get a dunk, but I think there'll be times where he just lets that thing fly. But there was several instances where Klay was setting screens or slipping screens with Kyrie at the top, and that's gonna be really difficult for defenses to stop.
For the Jazz, whether it's a second-year player.
Good pass by Lively right there to Kyrie. Yeah, Kyrie looked good.
Just a little bit short, looked good on our.
Again, the rebounding was a problem. I thought the Mavs defense actually looked really good. I like these type of plays from Najee in transition. He likes that, getting downhill and getting to that little Euro step, whether that's either a finish off the glass like that or a floater. He really likes that. This was a great individual defensive possession by Lively, but again, the rebounding right there. Quentin Grimes just a little small. That led to a open 3 off an offensive rebound, but really great individual perimeter defense by D-Live. Let's slow that down a little bit. Look at him move his feet. Look at the hip movement. That's one thing about Lively is the hips are so smooth. That little hip turn, man. That's what you got to do if you're a bigger guy on the perimeter against a small. Those hips got to be moving.
The rookie out of USC and second-year man.
I love this play. Quentin Grimes coming off the screen, knocking down a 3. Like that a lot. Already had some moments. That was a bad pass right there, but look at Gafford clean it up. Hey!
With a mini run. Racing to the rim.
Gafford looked really good.
Euro step. And
This center competition, getting the most out of some guys, huh?
Bucket drives it inside, sends the ball, reaches, and
Summer. He said that raising your worst level is the key so that the standard is always higher even on your worst days. So on the court.
yeah, also thorough, I think.
The defense both looked good and great, and they also allowed way too many second chance opportunities. Yeah, second chance opportunities killed the Mavs last night.
Elite player.
That first quarter scored or assisted
Got to rebound better. And I will say, this felt, love that play right there.
in that first quarter.
Clay coming off the screen. Get used to seeing that.
In that first quarter scored or assisted.
Yep. You see Kessler in the middle of the floor. There's just no way he's getting out to that.
The Jazz points.
That's going to be a wide open three every single time. So what's y'all's opinion about this, I wonder? Do we say a guy hits a bucket in the preseason? Do we say that's the first basket for Klay Thompson as a Maverick? It's got to be regular season for me. I get what they're saying, though. Now, Larry played really nice last night. I thought Keontae George looked good, too, before hurting his knee. Oh! What a block.
Right here you see Lowry going in hard.
Great timing.
Left hand. Gafford reads it perfectly.
Two more. First Jazz man in double figures with 11.
Again, Hardy's three-point shot looked good.
Expecting to get more of them.
3 of 11 last night, 2 of 6. So he hasn't shot well from inside the arc yet.
Got it just over
I thought Dinwiddie looked rough.
fingertips, got a little flame blowing right
My expectations for Dinwiddie are very low. I just got to tell you right now.
Takes a step inside,
Okay.
throws it inside, lively.
Couple things right here, obviously.
Tips, got a little flame blowing right out of the tips.
Two-man game between Klay Thompson and Derek Lively. So Hendricks jumps there on Klay. Now Klay's got him on his hip. Kessler's got to step up.
Takes a step
And really good read by Klay. That nice little touch by Lively. That's the stuff that we need to. That's the stuff that we need to see. Yeah, Klay did love Trace Jackson Davis. Klay can play a two-man game. It's not the same as like a Luka two-man game where Luka's getting downhill, getting to the rim, all of this. But it's similar in the sense that the defense pays so much attention to it. Pays so much attention to Klay from three that it just leads to opportunities. I think that's something that will surprise some Mavs fans who haven't fully watched the Warriors much.
Big in today's league. Him get better at.
Kyrie looked really good, I thought. Just looked like Kyrie Irving. And I mean that in a positive way, obviously. Yep, little dribble handoff. I mean, that's the release right there. It's so quick. He can get it off from different angles, you know. Can come up from either hip. I mean, it's just really good.
And you feared going inside against a guy who could block.
Is Klay's passing underrated? Maybe a little bit. That's a nice move by Quentin Grimes.
George being
That's when
Still slipping. I don't know if he got pushed.
Keontae George hurt his knee. They said there's not really a concern for him missing any actual time, but that shit scared me when I first saw it. I didn't even know that happened until I watched it this morning.
One of the best in the business does those catch and shoots from three.
That's a really nice floater right there by Hardy.
Hendricks on some of the league's best players, and he's got to try to make it tough for him. Great block by him to start the break.
Klay Naji can do more with the ball than Derrick Jones Jr. Timmy. Oh, for sure.
Marshall. Tough drive inside. Collins. Collapse baseline.
Again, Gafford I thought played really well. What did he end up with? 7 of 10 from the field, 15 points, 7 rebounds, 3 blocks. And some just violent dunks.
Yeah, came over from Atlanta, right, and was asked to be a little bit different here.
So I missed the Charlie XCX section. Did you like 360 Young Lean remix? I like the original better.
Defending and continuing to make good plays.
Cody Williams got a lesson from Gafford. Tough to go inside on a long big, and then how about
There was Gafford posterizing AJ Lawson,
In the third quarter,
who is back.
another runner?
And this is pretty much just the end of bench guys here. Now the Jazz did take this pretty seriously. I mean, this might have been their dress rehearsal. They had guys playing into the fourth quarter in this one. You got Hendricks had 34 minutes, but Kessler with 24, Markkanen with 29, Sexton with 26. So they treated this. I'm assuming this was kind of their preseason dress rehearsal game. This was their third game. Most teams only play 4. So you like Caroline Polachek? Yeah, I mean, that remix is fucking incredible. So anyways, Mavs got beat up a little bit on the glass. I thought their defense did play really, really well. 3-point shooting was a little bit iffy. Omax, a bit of a mixed bag game for him. He did some things that I liked. He did some things that I liked, but a lot of his stuff came later in the game when the Jazz did finally put in their end of bench guys. I don't really know what to take from that. I thought Lively looked pretty good. Not as good as the first game of the preseason, but I thought he looked good. Kyrie looked like Kyrie Irving. Didn't make a three, but, got to all of his spots easily. Looked good physically. Dinwiddie, again, my expectations for Dinwiddie are low. Kid says dress rehearsal now. Everybody's using that word. No, dress rehearsal has been a thing in preseason forever. That's been like that's like an NFL term forever. It's a dress rehearsal. There used to be in the preseason, each NFL team would have a dress rehearsal game where they played like 3 quarters. Najee hasn't been very efficient from the field yet, but you can just see how he puts. What do you think the backup ball handler role will look like? I think Kyrie, I mean, there's hardly going to be any minutes where Kyrie and Luka aren't on the floor. One of those two. I think you're seeing Najee Marshall's going to have the ball in his hands quite a bit. Quite a bit. So we'll see. Again, I thought their defense was good. They got to rebound better, but having Luka back, having PJ back will help that out tremendously. And again, this did feel like the preseason, like, all right, this is how we're going to try to play games. So the Jazz were playing pretty hard. And I don't think the Mavs were not playing hard. I don't want to use that excuse or anything, but that could have been part of it as well. There's a little bit more effort from the Jazz end. But without Luka, without PJ, the Mavs are missing quite a bit of size. So I wouldn't read too much into that. Yeah, Larry Marketing got red hot. He's fucking good, man. Hopefully PJ's ready for the start of the regular season. All right, lads. I think they're really just being cautious with some of these guys. Shall we get into it then? Best and worst case scenario for every NBA team. We're talking about all 30. This is going to be long. So buckle up and get some fucking popcorn now. I'm sorry. Buckle up and get some popcorn. I went back and I looked at this last year. I think we've done this 2 consecutive years. And they're usually bad. I usually do a bad job on these. But the idea behind it, right? The idea behind it is we're not factoring in injuries. Like, every team can have a Memphis Grizzlies season from hell last year. Every team in the league can have the season where guys get hurt and we're the 13th seed. Right? Mentally preparing myself for slightly Hornets best case scenario. Oh, man. No, this isn't an article. This is not an article. This is by me. So I'm not spoiling. Next week is my full predictions for each team. I'm not spoiling that here. I'm just giving you best worst case scenario for every team, and we're talking through it. I'm going to try to not tell you guys which way I'm leaning, right? But yeah, write the article. This is the article. I am the article. I am the news. PowerPoint. Best worst case scenario for every Eastern Conference team. This was a difficult one. There's a lot more competitive teams in the East than in years past. When I say competitive, I mean fighting for that 4th, 5th, 6th seed. I can see a lot of different scenarios playing out. And I think there are some frisky teams. The way we're going to go about doing this is the teams that I think can finish last in the conference we'll start with, and we'll just work our way up, right? So we're going from the worst case scenario up, okay? And again, every team can have a season from hell where they finish 14th in the conference because everyone got hurt. I'm not factoring that in. I'm thinking realistic worst case scenarios, realistic best case scenarios. Let's just start with the Nets. Obviously, they are a very, very good candidate to finish with not only the worst record in the Eastern Conference, but the worst record in the NBA. I do think there's some secret. This could be one of the worst teams of all time by February. We're talking about, could this be the worst team ever? But when I was looking at their roster, I was a little bit surprised. I thought the best case scenario for them would have been like 14th, right? But there's some talent there where you can maybe talk yourself into them being a little bit more frisky. Not that they're going to be a playing team or anything. I don't see that being a scenario for them whatsoever. I have their best case scenario as finishing 12th in the Eastern Conference. Worst case scenario, finishing dead last, obviously, which in reality would not be the worst case scenario for them. But, let's say Ben Simmons. If we're just playing devil's advocate, Ben Simmons, contract year, says, hey, I've really liked making $40 million a season for doing nothing. If I want to make anywhere near that, I really got to show out this year. And I really got to get some sucker-ass team to buy into me again. He has not been a good player since 2021. And that was the year that he collapsed in the postseason. So we haven't seen him be good in 3+ years, around 3 years, going on 4 years. That's a long time in the NBA. Obviously, he hasn't been healthy, but even when he has played, he's looked like a shell of himself. But if he comes back and is good, if he comes back and he's somewhat good, Nick Claxton's healthy and plays, they could have a pretty good defense that could help them win some games, right? Let's not forget who Nick Claxton is. He just got paid in the offseason. He finished 9th in Defensive Player of the Year voting in 22-23. And he looks like a strong DPOY candidate when they're trying to win. Like, that's just the truth. Marcel, $9.99. I was told to get in here. We aren't friends anymore. Here I go, paying for my friendship. Hashtag this changes everything. Wow. This changes everything. Unbelievable. Thank you, Marcel. See you Sunday. Me and Marcel are going to hoop on Sunday. That's the plan right now, at least. Get some run in. I think TGK is going to be there too. But anyways, they still have some like good vets. You got Cam Johnson, obviously. You got Dorian Finney-Smith, obviously. Dennis Schroeder is there. And then if Cam Thomas does have that 28 point per game season that we've kind of thought about and dreamed of, he was at 22 points per game last year, 55% true shooting. That jumped up to 25 points per game on 57% true shooting post All-Star break. I could see a world where they get like 28 wins and finish 12th. But their worst case scenario, 15th. Ben Simmons sucks. Cam Thomas is just, mid-20s on middling efficiency. And they're just in complete and total fire sale mode at the deadline. Trading guys like Dorian, trading guys like Schroeder, trading guys like Cam Johnson. Just to get their young guys some burn. And you look at their young guys, Noah Clowney, Dariq Whitehead, Zaire Williams, Jalen Wilson, not a very, it's not something that really grips you, right? And they could have the worst offense in the NBA by a fairly comfortable margin. So those are the scenarios there for the Nets. The Wizards obviously have the potential to finish with the worst record in the Eastern Conference, which, again, I have that listed as a worst-case scenario for them. Realistically, it wouldn't be the worst-case scenario if they just continue their tank to get a high-end draft prospect and what's supposed to be a really good draft. I tried to go higher than 13th, but I really couldn't convince myself of a way where they finish better than that. Jordan Poole would have to have a bounce-back season, right? Post All-Star break last year, 20 points per game, 6 assists per game, 55% true shooting. Yes, this is a terrible, 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 terrible logo. Just have a fucking wizard. Like what? Your mascot is the Wizards. That's such a sick mascot. Yes, best case scenario 13th. Like that's not. Try to talk yourself into them having like playing upside. It really isn't there. The best case scenario again, Jordan Poole is around 20 points per game on good efficiency, or at least around league average efficiency. Alex Sarr, Bub Carrington, Keyshawn George, they look like the best rookie draft class, and Sarr's looked pretty good in preseason so far. Obviously, Bub Carrington was one of the stars of Summer League. So those three look really good as rookies. Jonas Valanciunas, let's not forget that he's there. They were dead last in rebounding a season ago. So Jonas Valanciunas in the mix is going to help them in that regard, and just kind of this veteran big man presence that'll help out their younger guards and stuff. Corey Kispert, can he get to like 40% from three? Opens up the floor. Can Bilal Coulibaly, who's grown a couple inches apparently, can we see that self-creation offensive leap for him? It didn't look great in the Olympics, but, you know. Yeah, their best case is the young talent keeps growing at 8-footers, yes. Their real best case scenario is Bilal shows you shit, Sarr shows you shit, Bub Carrington shows you shit, even if it's in a wasted effort, even if they lose, 60 games. As long as those guys do stuff, you feel good about it. Their worst case scenario is Kuzma, Valanciunas, Brogdon, maybe even Poole are on new teams by the middle of February. Jordan Poole continues to be an inefficient turnover machine, and you're just stuck with that contract entirely. That's actually worse than trading him, I think. You're bottom three on offense and defense. They were 28th in defense last year, 25th in offense last year. And Sarr, as a rookie big, struggle, especially a rookie big whose game is primarily on the perimeter, struggles quite a bit. Bub Carrington isn't as good as he showed in the Summer League. Bilal kind of doesn't show the flashes offensively that you would hope to see in year two from him. And you win 15 games. Like that's the worst case scenario right there for the Wizards. And it's one that you don't really have to bend reality to get to, for just being honest. But again, like them being high in the lottery odds is a good thing for them. The Pistons, I really tried. I really did try to convince myself maybe they could sneak into the play-in tournament. I really, really don't see it. But for the Pistons, this is a similar thing. A best case scenario is you really start to see, all right, we are trending in the right direction, right? The increased floor spacing that you got in the offseason helps out your young guards, Cade Cunningham and Jaden Ivey, right? They took the second fewest threes last year. They were bottom six in three-point accuracy, but they brought in Tim Hardaway Jr., who, we're Mavs fans. We shit on Tim Hardaway Jr. He will help space the floor. He's a volume three-point shooter. That's going to help them out tremendously. Tobias Harris, he can shoot threes. That'll help them out. Malik Beasley, he can shoot threes. That'll help him out. A full year of Simone Fontecchio, that'll help him out from three-point land, right? And then you see the Cade Cunningham breakout, where he was good last year, dude. He was good. The Cade Cunningham stuff, he was good on a weird, fucked up team last year. 22 points per game, career high. 35% from three, career high. 7.5 assists per game, career high. 54% true shooting, career high. 24 points per game on 56% true shooting in 18 games post All-Star break. And that was on a terrible team. And they'll be terrible again. But the floor will be spaced out a little bit more. Jaden Ivey breakout. They're about league average on defense, which I can see. I can see them being around a league average defense. They were 25th last year with the worst half-court defense. But if they're healthy, Cade's a good defender. Sarr is an incredible defender. If he gets more playing time, he's going to be one of the better defenders in the NBA this upcoming season. Jalen Duren. It's been bad for him defensively. Can we see improvements in that regard? Ron Holland, who they drafted 5th overall, strong defender. I can't get to them being a play-in team, especially in an East that's going to be more competitive, right? They went through a lot last year as far as humiliation. No, they did. I don't think they did finish dead last in the East last year. I don't think they're going to get there again. I just think they have more talent than the teams we just talked about. But their worst case scenario is their new additions. I mean, you look at it, we just mentioned them. It's not like Murderer's Row. Their new additions don't really work out, and they all checked out, and they're all traded by the trade deadline. Cade doesn't really take the efficiency lead. I'm hoping he gets like 59% true shooting from Cade this upcoming season. We don't get that. Asar's jumper continues to be terrible, and it really kind of fucks with the spacing and makes it really difficult to put him out there. Jalen Duren's abysmal defense does not improve. Jay Ivey continues to just kind of float around in this sort of awkward fit next to Cade and some of these other players that they have. That's the worst case scenario. And they're 14th again. And then, if they win 18 games this year and all of those things I listed just happen, they're in a really tough spot. They're in a really tough spot. You probably have to you probably have to break up that backcourt duo. Hornets. So here they are. Now I took last year. I had the Hornets range of outcomes was, I think, the biggest I had. I think it was the 6th seed to the 15th seed. This year I toned it down a little bit. I do think there's a world where they're a play-in team and get past the play-in and play a playoff series. I do think that there's a world where that happens, where they get to 40, 43 wins. LaMelo Ball actually plays basketball and makes an all-star game. 58 total games last 2 seasons. 58 total games. Oh, they upset the Celtics in round 1? The last full season we saw LaMelo Ball, he made the all-star game. I mean, dude, LaMelo is so good. I don't want people to forget how good LaMelo is. I really don't. I really don't. I know, I'm talking myself higher than 8th. Trust me. 8th, I had to look myself in the mirror and say, let's tone it the fuck down. Don't want to embarrass ourselves too much. Brandon Miller, sophomore leap. Over the last 33 games of the season for Miller. 20 points per game, 44% from the field, 37% from 3. A lot of those shots self-created. That is special stuff for a rookie player. He's going to be very, very good in the NBA. And I'm interested to see what a second-year leap looks like for him. Because it could be sneaky all-star upside. Second year, I'm not entirely sure that that's possible, but I don't know. We can easily get to over 20 points per game a season for Brandon Miller. That might be a little bit difficult if LaMelo's healthy and not in prison for a traffic violation, but it's possible. Their offense is around league average. They had the worst transition offense in the NBA last year, which is a little bit surprising considering their roster and the makeup of their team. I expect that to be much different this season. LaMelo should be healthy. Josh Green is going to help them with their transition game. I mean, that's just true. Miles Bridges, a beast in transition. Miles Bridges, can he have a bounce-back season? I mean, he was really, really bad last year. But he kind of feeds off of LaMelo Ball. I mean, in the short amount of time LaMelo played, Miles Bridges' true shooting percentage was 6 full points higher when LaMelo played versus when he didn't. So, just kind of put in the middle of a fucked up situation Miles Bridges did on the basketball court where he was just kind of asked to do way more than he should have been asked to do. It was also a weird year with his contract and stuff, and he's under contract now, so maybe he gets a little bit better. Mark Williams, can he fucking play? Can he play? He's played 62 total games in his career. 62. And he's already dealing with a foot strain. But here are his career per 36 stats. 17 points, 13 rebounds, 4.5 offensive rebounds, and nearly 2 blocks per 36 in his career. He's good. He needs to play basketball. Oh, and also, Trey Mann. Can Trey Mann get some 6th Man of the Year love? He's looked pretty good. He looked pretty good with the Hornets. He's looked pretty good in the preseason. Can Trey Mann get some 6th Man of the Year love? Yes, and they do have Grant Williams. I didn't forget about him. I just didn't list them. Worst case scenario, they're terrible again. LaMelo plays 40 games. Mark Williams plays 30. Brandon Miller, second year. Defenses hone in on him a little bit more. It's a little bit more of a struggle for him. Miles Bridges just kind of peaked a couple years ago, and this is just kind of who he is now as this middling basketball player. And they have the worst defense in the NBA. They were 29th last year. If Mark Williams is hurt and some other guys are hurt, they'll probably be a very, very bad defense yet again. So, I don't know. I really do like the talent on this Hornets team. It's better than people give it credit for. But they got to be healthy. That's really it. Their health issue is bad. And I try to avoid the health stuff for these teams because, again, any team can deal with health. Any team can deal with their team being injured and dead, right? But if it's a team that has dealt with it with regularity or players that have dealt with it with regularity, that's when I factor it in. And that's LaMelo Ball and Mark Williams, unfortunately. The Hawks. Now, I'm giving the Hawks a little bit of love here. You might see 7th. I think that's a little bit high. I think there's a world where they get to 45, 47 wins. Let me explain how it happens. Trae Young, all NBA season. Not out of the realm of possibility at all. We've seen him do it. He kind of has the ball again. They've moved off of DeJounte Murray. They said, all right, Trae, this is your team. Don't have to worry about sharing the backcourt. Don't have to worry about playing off ball, whatever. Just here's the fucking ball. Go to work. Do what you do, right? Jalen Johnson, 50 games last year. Was great in his 50 games. Can he play, 60, 70, 80 games? By the way, last year, and I'm a sucker for this Hawks team. I don't know what it is. Actually, I do know what it is. I'm a Trae Young defender. Okay, I always have been and I always will be. I actually think I'm one of the most underrated and disrespected players in the NBA. Full stop. Full stop. Last year, I had their peak being 4th. Their peak being 4th. I think their floor being 8th. Which actually ended up being true. Weren't they the 8th seed? But anyways, Jalen Johnson, can he play 60, 70, 8 games? I know Jalen Johnson already leapt. But can we get to 70 games with that leap as well? No, they made the playoffs. They lost to the Celtics. Wait, did they make the playoffs? I'm getting my years mixed up, I think. That was not this year where they played the Celtics in round 1, was it? No, because that was two years ago. Didn't they take the Celtics to 6? That's right. More upside for the Hawks. They did just have the number 1 overall pick. In Zachary Richichet, he's not a very exciting number 1 overall pick, but he was just the number 1 overall pick. And if he wins Rookie of the Year, I mean, that'll be big for them. If he slots in immediately as somebody who can contribute, that'll be really big for them. Dyson Daniels has shown a good amount of flash and upside, both with the Pelicans and with the Australian national teams in the Olympics. I'm interested in that because that to me is like a better backcourt solution next to Trae Young than DeJounte Murray. Somebody who knows his role offensively, can do some things offensively, but is a really, really, really strong perimeter defender, which Dyson Daniels is. I kind of like that. Larry Nance Jr. is a really strong, depth addition. And guys like Okongwu, I mean, we've been waiting for that breakout. Does that happen finally? There's a world where the Hawks are like sneaky good. But the world where they're bad, and I do think there's a world where they win 24 games in their 13th in the Eastern Conference. It's Trae is just okay, right? Not all NBA, just okay. They need him to be all NBA to be good. Yeah, Kobe Buffkin. How dare I forget Kobe Buffkin? I can't believe I did that. Trae has a decent season, and this could happen. This is a possibility, or he gets traded midseason. I mean, his name has been tossed around in trade rumors enough, and they've denied it. They've categorically denied it. But there's enough smoke that I think that there's been some talks, right? That they could trade Trae Young midseason. Jalen Johnson either doesn't play, 50, 60 games or kind of hits a wall and doesn't have the breakout that we kind of expect. Richichet doesn't look great as a rookie, and they sell off pieces at the deadline, like Clint Capella goes somewhere else, which could seem like a positive, but Okongwu really had a disappointing season last year, and I don't know if he's a center in the NBA. He might be one of these tweeners, which is not good for him. DeAndre Hunter, who hasn't been really good for him, but I could see him getting moved at the deadline. Bogdan, could see him getting moved at the deadline. Bogdan was incredible for them last season. So that's a real scenario that could happen. They've got a wide range of outcomes, I think. I think they can be better than people think. I do think that they could be really bad, though. Next up, the Raptors. So, Jakob Poeltl had that quote at their media day where he's like, yeah, I know we're going to be bad this year. Like, it is what it is. It's, we're not trying to win a championship. And I think people kind of spun that into being like, oh, this team sucks. Like, they're going to be horrible. I do kind of like this roster a little bit, and I think 10th might even be a little bit low. But then I look at the landscape of the league. I think they could get to like 38 wins and make the play-in tournament. I think that's possible for them. Scotty Barnes played in 60 games last year. Their best case scenario is he's healthy and continues to take leaps forward. There's times where he's looked like a potential future MVP candidate. Like, that's just the truth. That's just the truth. Emmanuel Quickley looked really, really good after getting traded there. Plays a really good two-man game with Jakob Poeltl. He got paid in the offseason. They believe in him. They should. He's a really, really solid player. Yes, RJ is already dealing with something. I mean, they're already dealing with something, which is the problem here, because this like group of four that they have, Scotty Barnes, RJ Barrett, Emmanuel Quickley, Jakob Poeltl, they only played in 234 minutes together last season after they made those trades, but they had a 11 net rating. Like, they kind of shit on teams. It's a little bit interesting. And RJ, after getting traded there, 21 points per game on 61% true shooting. Like, he was really good. He had some really good moments for Canada as well. It kind of looks like this is just going to be who he is. And if that is the case, they're going to be pretty decent this year. They're going to be pretty decent. And I could definitely see them, getting close to that 40-win mark, which in the East would most certainly have them in the play-in tournament. Worst case scenario, though, and that's where I'm getting at, Jeremy. Worst case scenario, 22 to 25 wins. They're 13th in the Eastern Conference. Injuries bite them in the ass. RJ Barrett's already dealing with an AC joint thing, which is out for the preseason. I saw some Raptors people are a little concerned that might linger into the regular season, which wouldn't be good. Jakob Poeltl played 50 games last season. Again, these are guys who deal with injuries, so I don't feel bad factoring that into the worst case scenario for them. And yes, their depth is not very good. They need more depth. They need more talent. Bruce Brown just hasn't been very good since leaving Denver. He's probably going to get traded at some point. It seems like that could happen sooner than later. You look at some of their other their backcourt depth. Davion Mitchell just kind of cast it away, literally salary dumped. Part of a salary dump trade from the Sacramento Kings, just gave his ass away. Jamal Shedd, Jacoby Walter, Grady Dick. We'll see what year two has in store. Showed some things last year, but he was supposed to be one of the more NBA-ready guys in the draft, and that just was not the case. Kelly Olynyk looks a little washed. Their depth is not very good, but they got a good, solid young core. And honestly, them being bad and getting a high lottery pick, I think would be really, really good for them. And I want to say they owe a pick. And I think it's 1 through 10 protected or something, which might incentivize tanking down the stretch. I could be wrong, but I want to say they owe the Spurs a top 10 protected first round pick, which again incentivizes a tank there. The Bulls. Oh, they're good on picks? That was last year? Okay, my bad. All right, that's right. They did convey last year. You're right. Because the Bulls the Spurs traded that. That was the pick the Spurs traded to the Timberwolves, right? The Bulls. So I struggle. I really can't see a world where the Bulls are horrendous. I do see a world where they're around 500 to above 500. Yet again, that's who the Bulls have been forever. And they're in the play-in tournament. This scenario is Josh Giddey kind of thrives in this new role that he's found himself in, where he just is the guy offensively and he can do Josh Giddey things on the basketball court, and 32 games without Shea in his career, where he was kind of the lead ball handler. 17 points a game, 8 rebounds, 7 assists. So, I mean, that's not bad. I do think this Giddey addition, I think it'll work out a little bit better than people expect. Lonzo is doing things. That's would help them out tremendously, obviously. Zach LaVine is actually healthy and plays pretty well. 25 games last season. 2 years ago, he did play 77 games and averaged nearly 25 points per game. Bazulis gets Rookie of the Year buzz. He was a very, very highly touted prospect a year before the draft. He did drop a little bit, and even going, what did he end up going, 11th? That even felt a little bit low for him. Like, he was getting top 5 buzz all draft process and then dropped a little bit. But there's a scenario where he gets some Rookie of the Year buzz. Kobe White continues his growth. Should have won Most Improved Player last year, 100%. 19 points per game last year, career high for him. 5 assists per game last year, career high. Can he continue to contribute at that level? And they're about league average offensively. That would be a best case scenario for them. They were 22nd last year. I think with Giddey, if they run a little bit quicker, if Zach LaVine's back and is doing things, if Vucevic doesn't shoot 18% from three, I don't know what he shot from three. That's what it felt like. They could be around a league average offense. So I saw Ben Simmons is plus 900 to win Rookie of the Year. I saw that meme. I don't know. I could see a world. And even if their worst case scenario for me, I think is something like 33 wins. And they're the 11th or maybe 12th seed. Now, the thing is, somebody mentioned it earlier in the chat. They do owe a top 10 protected pick this year. I think it's to the Spurs. I think that was still for the DeRozan thing. Does that sound right? Their pick is top 10 protected this year. So, if they are kind of at the 10th seed, 11th seed, there might be some real incentive down the stretch for them to tank their asses off. Another worst case scenario for them record wise, this would be good for them, but I'm just saying for the record, they find a trade partner for Zach LaVine and Vucevic, but their return's not good. Right? Can't imagine they get something for those guys that like helps them out in terms of winning basketball games currently. Or Another worst case scenario, they don't find trade partner for a guy like Zach LaVine, and the vibes are completely and totally fucked. They have a bottom 3 defense. They were 22nd in defense last year, but they were 5 points per 100 possessions worse on defense with Alex Caruso off the court. Now he's gone, obviously, so that defense is going to take a pretty significant step back. Already wasn't very good. Giddey just looks like a jag. Giddey just looks like another dude. And that does end up looking like a bad trade. And their depth has potential to be pretty bad. Jalen Smith, I do like that signing for him. That could be a signing that flops, though. P. Will just, at this point in time in Patrick Williams' career, is it safe to say he's just not that good of a player? Like, we've all been waiting for it. He might not be that good. Javon Carter was terrible last year. Ayo Dosunmu has a weird season with his role kind of in flux. Dalen Terry doesn't really progress. Bazzulla struggles as a rookie. I could see all those things happening as well, which would have them. I have them at 11th. I say all those things. It could be much worse. I don't know why I was so lenient here with the Bulls. The Magic. So I do think the Magic have kind of this wide range of outcomes. And having them here at 9th really just goes to show that there's a good amount of teams fighting for this middle class here in the Eastern Conference. Here's their scenario for here's their high-end scenario. I think 50 to 53 wins, and I do think they can finish as high as second in the Eastern Conference, 1,000%. Paolo takes a leap forward, right? The Magic, and when I say leap forward for Paolo, I'm really meaning efficiency-wise. We see that efficiency continue to uptick for Paolo. That's really the thing currently for him. They are 24-6 when Paolo shot 50% or better last year. 24-6. Like, if Paolo, and I know that's kind of a stupid fucking stat. Yes, obviously, if our star player plays well, we're going to win. But with their defense and how good their defense is, if they just get like good performances from their two main guys, they're really hard to beat. They are 9-14 when he shot under 40%. He averaged 27 points per game on 55% true shooting in the playoffs. I thought he was awesome in that series. I really do. And that really solidified. I was already really high on Paolo. That postseason series really solidified him for me. I think he's going to be fucking awesome. And I'll just tell you right now, I'll spoil. I don't really know why I have them 9th here. Well, we'll get to it. But I definitely think they trend way more towards up here whenever I do my actual predictions. Franz rediscovers his three-point stroke. They were 20-7 last year when he just shot 33% or better from three. 33%. 20-7. When he shot 33%. That's not even good. Can he just not be shit? That's it. The Suggs three-point improvement is real and continues, and we already know how great he is defensively. Jonathan Isaac plays 60-plus games. Can we get to that? Can we get a somewhat healthy Jonathan Isaac season? We've been asking for it forever. But they had a plus 12 net rating in 900 minutes when he was on the court last year. Plus 12. They were shitting on teams. Anthony Black, year 2. right? Fultz is gone. Ingles is gone, but that means a guy like Anthony Black is ready to step forward. He showed a decent amount of stuff his rookie season. KCP, he's here. He helps out on offense without taking anything away from your defense. And they have the best defense in the NBA with a league average offense. They were 22nd in offense last year with the third best defense. Best defense in the NBA with a league average offense. That's a possibility for them. Worst case scenario, they're the 9th seed, 43 to 47 wins. You know, keep in mind, finishing like 9th in the regular season in the East could just mean you're one game behind the 5th seed. Like that could be what we end up seeing. The argument. The rest of the East just got a little bit better as well. Teams are going to be more healthy in the Eastern Conference. The top end teams have gotten a little bit better as well. So that might hurt the middle class a little bit. Paolo's efficiency remains a little frustrating. He's still around below league average. Franz is just a complete and total non-factor from three. And I think this year, if we start to see that, it's really going to hurt the offense. Because I think Franz had at least enough reputation to be like, all right, we're gonna we have to sort of respect that shot. Where if he's 20% from three this year, teams are not going to respect him whatsoever from three. Jonathan Isaac misses time. They're bottom 5 on offense. KCP kind of struggles without Jokic, which we've seen players leave the Nuggets and not look anywhere near as good, but KCP has proven that he's a championship level player elsewhere. So that I say that out loud. I do see a world where their offense is really bad. And it kind of hurts them. But again, I'm just going to tell you right now, because some people are surprised to see I had them, their low case scenario 9th. I think they trend much more towards this scenario in my brain. The Heat. I kind of like their roster. I don't know. This feels like a classic Heat season. Does it not? Like this time, everyone is writing them off. Everyone is saying, all right, this is the time. This is the real death of the Miami Heat. They can't come back from this. I think there's a world where they win 47 to 50 games. Jimmy Butler is locked in and plays most of the regular season. He did play 60 games last year, which is good regular season wise for Jimmy Butler. They were +5 when he was on the court, so he still impacts the game tremendously. And they say that he's locked in. They say that he's locked in. Terry Rozier, I thought he showed some things, some flashes for the Heat last year, especially whenever all of their guys were hurt, and Terry Rozier was pretty much the only player they had that could create offense for himself. He's here for a full offseason. Don't forget, Terry Rozier is a good basketball player, man. He's a good basketball player. Khalil Ware makes an immediate impact. Some people have said, could this be a Derek Lively thing, where they draft this center, and he ends up becoming just huge for them? This could allow them, if Khalil Ware's good, this could allow them to have either a monster backup center next to Bam Adebayo, or it could allow them to play Bam at the 4 and have Khalil Ware play the 5. Let's not forget, the last 20 games of the season, Bam averaged over a 3-point attempt a game. Jovic takes a leap forward. I so want to predict Jovic to win Most Improved Player. I don't think it happens. I don't think that there's even a world where it happens. But Jovic could take a step forward. And they are built. Their team, with their assets, with their contracts, they are built to make a sizable move at the deadline. I've heard Miami Heat fans, but Miami Heat podcasters and people on Twitter say that this feels like a trade deadline where they really make a move. Like a sizable move to try and improve their team. And they have a top 3 defense this year with the league average offense. They were 5th in defense last year. We know Spoelstra defenses are always going to be good. And they were 21st offensively last year. They dealt with so many injuries, and they were still the 13th best half-court offense. So the pieces are there for a good offense. I think this team's going to be better than people think. I think even their low-case scenario is around 500. And that's Jimmy is either hurt or that situation gets weird. Let's not forget, he's on a contract year. They haven't worked out an extension. It felt like at times it was almost a foregone conclusion that he was going to get traded. Could those rumors kind of re-spark, and that leads to things being weird? I could see their offense kind of really struggling a little bit at times. Being bottom 10 in offense again would hurt them. Their depth issues. Their depth is a little bit rough. their backcourt depth. Tyler Hero, he's good. He's nice. Terry Rozier, he's good. He's nice. But then it kind of drops off a cliff, like Josh Richardson, Alec Burks. This team hasn't really been like the picture of health either. So I could really see these depth issues coming to bite them in the ass. But I don't know. It's dangerous sleeping on this Heat team. And I think this is another year where it might be a little dangerous sleeping on the Heat. The Pacers. I do think there's a world where they finish second in the East. I feel like they're the easy, they made the conference finals. They had a very easy path, right? And I think everyone is sort of, the Heat are looming dangerously. Everyone sort of pencils them in as the team that's going to take a step backwards. And that kind of makes some sense. But let's dive into it a little bit. Their best case scenario, I think they could get to 53 wins. Tyrese Halliburton, let's not forget, okay? Let's not forget who he was before he got hurt last season. Looked like he was cruising to a first-team All-NBA selection. Looked like he was cruising to top 5 in MVP voting. 24 points per game, nearly 13 assists per game, on 40% from 3, on 8.5 attempts per game in 32 games. Now, I do want to say, I saw somebody tweet this out yesterday, and I actually 100% agree with this, is it is very weird how we take those 30 games from Tyrese Halliburton, and we sort of be like, oh, well, that's who Tyrese Halliburton is. Like, that's who he is. Those 30 games. Where with other players, like Trae Young, for example, it's like, here's 5 years of Trae Young being fucking awesome. So I don't want to, like, say that's who Tyrese Halliburton is, those 32 games. But I don't know. Andrew Nembhard. They paid him in the offseason. He looked incredible in the playoffs. He was good in the Olympics. 15 points per game, 5.5 assists per game, 48% from 3 in their conference finals run. He was so big for them with Tyrese Halliburton dealing with injuries. Could we get a big step forward from him? Siakam. They have fucking Pascal Siakam. I feel like Siakam has become very underrated, which is funny because he's always been underrated, and then he was so underrated that he almost became overrated because everyone kept calling him underrated, but now he is actually underrated, I think. They could have the best offense in the NBA this year. They were second last year, but first before Tyrese Halliburton hurt his hamstring. So we could definitely see a world where the Indiana Pacers are the best offense in the league. Benedict Mathurin, he is back. He's healthy. He strengthens that bench unit. Jarris Walker shows some flashes, and he's ready to go. Wait, why can't I talk today? You guys know I love Jarris Walker. What did I have him on my draft big board? 3rd? Might be a little too high. The draft might not be my thing. The draft might not be my thing. I had Omax higher than Derek Lively on my draft big board. Worst case scenario, I do think there's a world where they're 44 wins, 47 wins, and they're the 8th seed in the play-in tournament. Again, they're sort of middle class in the East. They're going to be dueling with each other. You have the Bucks, the Sixers, the Knicks, who are like, you kind of assume will be that 2 through 4 range. But then you have teams like the Magic, teams like the Pacers, who I think could get into that mix as well, but are also this sort of middle class that, 1 or 2 things go wrong, and the East is strong enough that you might fuck around and be the 8th seed if you have like a month-long bad stretch. I could see something similar happening to the Pacers that happened to the Kings a couple years ago, where they try to sacrifice some offense that make their defense better, and in return, the thing that made them really, really potent, their offense, just isn't that good anymore, and then their team is just not that good anymore. They still, no matter what, they still have a size issue. Siakam definitely helps with that, but they don't really have the wings with any real size. Like, they're relying on Nesmith, who I do think is a dog. I think he plays up in size, but he's still small. Nembhard is still kind of small, right? Hard-nosed defender, but small. This is where you could see like a Jarris Walker. Obi Toppin has good length, but I don't really think he's a defender. And there's some front court depth issues that I think they have that could come back to bite them in the ass if something happens to Miles Turner or something in that regard. So I could see a world where they're kind of one bad month, like they have a bad January, and now they're just kind of the 8th seed. The Sixers. So one of the busiest teams, if not the busiest team, not just of the offseason, but in a long time. When was the last time we saw a team have that big of a shakeup in the offseason? Like, it feels like it never happens like that anymore. The Nets. Do you think there's a world where they get to mid-50 in wins? And they're the second seed. Embiid's healthy, plays 60-plus games, while they're still sort of making sure that he's fully healthy going into the postseason. Paul George is healthy, and he just sort of thrives as this third option who creates when he has to create, shoots, good-looking threes, and just kind of plays his game, can focus a little bit more on defense. Tyrese Maxey, is there another step forward for Maxey? Is there something else he can get to? He averaged 26 points per game, 5.5 assists per game in 34 games without Embiid last year. On average efficiency, 56% true shooting. Is there another leap forward? He was fucking awesome in the playoffs for them. He was incredible in that Knicks series. Is there even more that Tyrese Maxey can tap into to be a legit All-NBA level player? Jared McCain, could he? I think there's a world where Jared McCain floor spacing off the bench becomes pretty important for them. I don't know if there's going to be Rookie of the Year love or anything like that, but could definitely see a world where his floor spacing becomes important. And there's definitely a world where he's this is both a top 10 offense and a top 10 defense. They were 14th on offense last year, 11th on defense last year. If Embiid's healthy, they're going to be a top 10 defense and a top 10 offense, I think. So it really comes back to Embiid being healthy. That's really it for the Sixers. If he is healthy, he's that good of a player. He's that big of a difference maker. He's that big of a floor raiser that they will be a really good basketball team if he plays. Worst case scenario, Embiid is injured, or they take it really easy with him. He only played in 39 games last season, and even only playing 39 games, he was still dealing with shit in the postseason. I could see them just being 55 games for Embiid, and that's what we want. Any ankle thing, you're out. Any knee thing, you're out. We're not running you out there anymore, playing you 38 minutes a game with a fucked up knee. We're not doing that. We're not rushing you back. We need you to be fully healthy for the postseason. Paul George, he played in 74 games last year, but the 4 years before that, 56, 31, 54, 48. Hasn't really been that healthy over the last 5 or 6 years. Or, again, they could say, we're cool with being the fucking 6th seed. We're cool with being the 7th, 8th seed in the play-in tournament. As long as Embiid and Paul George are healthy in the playoffs, that's all we care about. Their bench depth, I think they did a pretty good job sort of putting this team together in the offseason, but their bench is still old as dirt. Kyle Lowry, he was decent for the Sixers last year, but he's 38 years old. Reggie Jackson, 34 years old, did not look good at all for the Nuggets. Eric Gordon, 35 years old. There's a world where they're the 7th seed, but it's kind of by design, if that makes sense. The Bucks. I do think the Bucks, if some weird shit happens to the Celtics, I do think the Bucks could get the 1 seed. I'm higher on the Bucks than I think most people are. For all of the shit that we gave Dame and Giannis in that duo for not working out, they were +9 when those two were on the court last year with a 123 offensive rating. They were really, really good when those two shared the floor together. And just when they're core 4 guys, Giannis, Dame, Brook Lopez, Chris Middleton, when those 4 are on the court, 677 minutes, a +16 net rating. I mean, they just obliterated teams. That's still a really, really good group. Best case scenario, Giannis wins MVP. He averaged 30 points per game last season, 11.5 rebounds per game, 6 assists per game. Great playmaking stuff from Giannis last year. That was a career high. 65% true shooting, that was a career high. Finished 4th in MVP voting. He had a really, really good season last year. Brook Lopez, can he still keep it going? I mean, I feel like he's defying age, and it just feels like this is it for Brook Lopez, and every time it feels like that, we're proven wrong. Bubba, welcome to the Slightly Delusional Club. Their defense was 6 points per 100 possessions better with him on the floor last year. Brook Lopez, despite his age and despite how slow he looks, he's still very important for their defense. Chris Middleton, the ankle stuff is very concerning, but he had 24 points per game in that series against the Knicks. He was really good. He was really, really good in that series. He was awesome. Gary Trent Jr., really, really, really good offseason pickup for them. Crazy that's the league minimum. I heard this stat on the All City podcast that he was best in the league last year at wide open threes, 51%. 51% on wide open threes, Gary Trent Jr. was. Action Jackson! I love me some Action Jackson. And can their defense be top 10 this year? Last year it was 19th, which was just really weird. Really, really weird. Can they climb back into the top 10? If that's the case, they can be contending for a 1 seed if the Celtics slip up a little bit. Absolutely. Absolutely. Worst case scenario, here's the worst case scenario for you. With Doc Rivers there, with this sort of uneasy feeling with Giannis. There is kind of this weird feeling with Giannis. And their group is old. They have no assets. They have no young talent. So it feels kind of now or never. There's a world where they get off to a slow start and the vibes are really, really fucked. Like, the vibes are terrible. It just sort of snowballs a little tiny bit. That's kind of what happened to them last year. The vibes are bad, and they never fully recovered from their vibes being terrible. Dame, he is 34. He was awesome last year. He played in 73 games last year. It's the most he's played since 2019. You know, he's a guard who relies a lot on explosiveness, and we've seen with these smaller guards who do rely on explosiveness, is that can go overnight. And once it's gone, it's gone. I don't think that'll happen this year, but it is something to watch, and it's part of the worst case scenario for them. Brook Lopez is 36 years old, and he's definitely slowed down. He's definitely looks like he's moving in fucking quicksand. He's still really important to their defense, but if he gets even slower or that rim protection's not quite there anymore, that hurts them tremendously. And their depth, which I think is kind of a problem, comes back to bite them in the ass. And if that happens, we're looking at 46, 49 wins, 7th seed, disappointing season. Now what? Now what happens with this team? The Cavaliers just feels like a sort of safe floor team. As long as they're healthy, they're going to be, contending for home court advantage. And that's just kind of that. I can see them get to mid-50 wins, something that they've done. I could see them do that. Can Evan Mobley finally take this leap? Can he finally do it? Over the last 12 regular season games, 2 3-point attempts per game, he shot 45% on those. Now, 12 games isn't shit, but does that mean something? Can Darius Garland return to form? 18 points per game, 56% true shooting in 57 games last year. He was awful throughout the postseason for them, just complete and total no-show at times when they really needed him to show up. He dealt with different injuries throughout the season. 21 points per game on 8 assists 2 years ago, 21 points per game on 8.5 assists 3 years ago, and made the All-Star game. Can we get a return to form? Please, Darius, I love you. I've said in the past, and I don't believe this anymore, but I've said this in the past, I thought Darius Garland was going to win assist titles in his career. Donovan Mitchell, can he make All-NBA? Again, he was awesome last year. Can we get a repeat season from Donovan Mitchell? I don't see why not. Can they land a forward at the trade deadline? Is there an option out there? Is Cam Johnson? I mean, that feels like the perfect player for them is Cam Johnson. I don't know how they can make it work. Can they land a guy like that at the deadline that just sort of solidifies that 5th spot in their rotation? We already know who their 4 guys are. It's kind of a revolving door. Strus, Okoro, Dean Wade sometimes. Like, it's a revolving door of guys. Can they finally address that and get somebody who they can just plug and play there? And can they be top 10 in both offense and defense this year? They were 18th in offense last year, 7th in defense. It's possible. And if all those things happen, or some of those things happen, 55 wins. I mean, they'll be fucking good. Let's not forget how good they looked at times last year. Worst case scenario, their offense is bottom 10. Their offense takes a step backwards. Mobley doesn't really take the leap forward that we're expecting. Garland, for whatever reason, I don't know if it's a confidence thing or if it's just this fit next to Donovan Mitchell, but for whatever reason just cannot return to form and just looks like, who he was last year, which was an okay guard. And if those things happen, I could see a world where the vibes start to get a little bit fucked. We talk about vibes a lot here. They are important. It's like real base level analysis. It doesn't mean shit, but vibes are important. I could see a world where their defense takes a small step backwards, and if their depth gets tested, that's a little scary. They're not the deepest team. They have some interesting guys here and there, but I don't know. If that happens, 47 wins, 49 wins, 7 seed in the play-in tournament, don't feel great about that. The Knicks. Do you think that there's a world where they finish with the best record in the Eastern Conference? They need much better health this year. All the injuries they dealt with last year. The Cat and Jalen Brunson two-man game. Big Bodega, he had a great game last night. Cat and Brunson, the two-man game is next to impossible to stop. Deuce McBride, can he sort of solidify himself as this real sixth man of the year candidate? They hate him. Tyler Kolek, some people love him. Is he ready for rotation minutes? Just kind of makes you forget about Dante DiVincenzo a little bit. And here's the thing. They still have trade assets. They still have picks. They still have tradable contracts. If there's like holes that pop up on their roster, they can make moves at the trade deadline to improve those things. So I do think 55 to 59, 60 wins maybe could be in play with this team if they're healthy. OG's a guy who has not been healthy throughout his career. Mitchell Robinson already hurt, not playing the entire calendar year of 2024. We already know all of that stuff. So their depth is going to be tested immediately. But they're fucking good, and they're built for this. They're really built for the playoffs, but they're going to be a great regular season team as well. Their worst case scenario, I could see 47 to 50 wins, still a really high floor. OG misses some time, which we should almost just kind of expect at this point. Their new lineup takes a little bit of time to gel. We've seen that happen from time to time where teams get off to slow starts and then figure it out, but that does affect your record. Deuce McBride doesn't really look like the guy that we hope he can be, and their depth is greatly tested. And Cat at the 5, could that take away some from the defense? This defense that we're all sort of projecting to be one of the best ones in the league. Is Cat just this glaring weakness that's almost impossible to like work around because you don't have a guy like Rudy Gobert next to? I don't know. I think they're going to be good. And the Celtics, the final team here in the Eastern Conference. I do think that they'll be the number 1 seed. Again, I know that they're dealing with some front court problems already, but I do think there's a world where they're at 64, 67 wins again. Absolutely think that there's a world where that happens. Tatum and Brown, it's corny. It's a little lame, but they seem hungry still. We've seen times in the past where guys win, especially guys who have been trying for so long. They get that ring, and then they sort of just, all right, foot off the gas a little bit, or at least maybe in the regular season. We know we can do it now. Let's just get there. But those two are going to be hungry. Tatum's going to try to win MVP this year. I promise you that. Jaylen Brown's going to try and prove that he belonged on the Team USA roster. He deserved those MVP votes. Definitely a world where they can finish with the best offense and the best defense in the league. They were number 1 in offense last year, 3rd in defense last year. And there's a world where those front court problems are just completely overblown, at least in the regular season. KP comes back in January, and he's healthy. Horford looks fine. But until then, Tillman and Cornette just fill in perfectly fine. And they're still really good. There's a world where Tatum wins the MVP. There's a world where Peyton Pritchard is getting 6th man of the year votes. Like, there's a world where that happened. And if that's the case, you know, we're pushing mid-60s wins again. Worst case scenario, I put down here, I still think their floor is 54, 57 wins, which would have them 2nd seed, probably even 1st, but 2nd seed if another team in the East sort of shows up. That scenario, they have a bit of a championship hangover. I don't get the feeling that Joe Mazzulla is a guy who will allow that to happen, but championship hangover, they're just kind of coasting through the regular season. The team prioritizes health and rest over regular season wins. Again, not something I expect to see, but let's just get back to the playoffs healthy, and we know how good we are. I definitely a world where KP is out longer than expected and is sort of rusty and trying to get his legs under him when he comes back and is not anywhere near the KP that they saw for most of the season last year. But even then, they were plus 11 when he was on the court, dominating teams. They were plus 10 when he was off. Oh, wait, that's the other way around. They were plus 11 with him off the court, plus 10 with him on the court. Just fucking stupid, man. They got some older dudes. Drew's getting up there in age. Horford's getting up there in age. So if those guys sort of lose a step, obviously they won't be as great. But, dude, they're still going to be really good. Like, we could be approaching a dynasty. Like, that's just kind of where we're at. This team is stacked. All right, best and worst case scenario for the Western Conference teams. The West is the West is going to be fun this season. I mean, I could see a lot of different things happen. I think it is much more open than people think. Of course, I think most people have penciled in the Thunder to easily finish first in this conference, which I haven't fully made my predictions yet, but I think that that's probably going to happen as well. But there are some very good teams in this conference. Very, very good teams. And there's also some teams with very interesting situations where if we're approaching the trade deadline and they're 5 games under 500, what the fuck happens to that team? It's going to be a lot of fun. And remember, when I'm saying worst case scenario, I'm thinking realistic worst case scenario, realistic best case scenario. Of course, any team can end up like the Grizzlies last year or the Mavericks from 2 years ago where everything goes to shit. But I'm not really factoring that in. I'm factoring realistic scenarios. And we're starting off with the Clippers, who, yes, I do think there's a world where they finish dead last in the conference. Now, let me explain why. Let's start with the upside. I do think they can be a playing team. Obviously, their ceiling has dropped dramatically. Their championship window has slammed shut. But I do think that they can still be a team that is over 500, 44 wins, and is in the play-in tournament. And that is James Harden is healthy and has an All-NBA level season. He averaged 17 points per game, 8.5 assists per game without Kawhi last season, 21 points per game, nearly 10 assists per game without Paul George last season. So we've seen, even last year, in his age, that the if needed, he can still sort of tap into that point guard play style that we've seen James Harden have. There's a world where they have a top 5 defense. Derrick Jones Jr., that addition helps them out defensively. Chris Dunn, that helps them out defensively. They have defensive pieces. If Kawhi Leonard is relatively healthy by Kawhi standards, and guess what? He's not fucking healthy. He hasn't practiced yet at all. We're less than 2 weeks away from the season. He's yet to practice, and they don't know when he's going to practice. Looked awful in the playoffs. Obviously, he was hurt. Got let go from the Team USA roster because he was hurt. But if he comes back and plays, they'll be a good defensive team. And obviously, Ty Lue's an incredible coach. KPJ is there. I don't know what we're going to see from Kevin Porter Jr. I mentioned it does kind of feel like the basketball gods work in mysterious ways where these guys almost always have disappointing seasons. But he could help them out. He could help them out with their floor spacing and some shooting concerns. Can Kawhi play 60-plus games and look like an all-star? Their offense will take a step back this year for sure, but maybe not so drastic. They were 5th last year in offense. Can they get to 15th? Can they stay around league average to maybe top 10-ish? And Ty Lue's still one of the best coaches in the NBA. I know you guys are saying that might be low. I mean, I think their ceiling is like 44 wins. And in this fucking stacked-ass conference last year, that I think would have had you out of the play-in tournament. Like, let's not forget how stacked this conference is. 44 wins, 9th seed. I think that would be fine for them. And I do think here's the argument for them winning 22 to 25 games and being 15th. Okay? Here's the argument. James Harden misses time, looks old, checks out. All things that we can maybe expect from James Harden. Why? Why does he get the benefit of the doubt? He shouldn't. Okay? He's good when he plays. He's still really good when he plays basketball. But, hey, man, at a certain point, if everywhere you go smells like shit, might be time to check the shoe. Okay. The vibes are horrendous. Could definitely see this being a team where the vibes are just so bad. So bad. Kawhi plays 20 to 30 games. Need I say any more? They're a bottom tier offense. Could see that happening. Again, this huge collapse potential, which is fucked because the Thunder have their pick. Could we see, I could see this scenario playing out where we get to close to the trade deadline. The Clippers are 5 games below 500. They're looking at themselves. They're saying, we let Paul George walk away for nothing. We need to salvage some shit here while we can. Like, we're going to be bad. The Thunder get our pick, whatever. We're bad anyways. We need to salvage something so we can look forward to things in the future. We got to salvage something. Could we maybe trade Kawhi Leonard? Could we maybe trade? I can't imagine James Harden getting traded again. But could we maybe trade, I don't know, Zubats? I was thinking, actually, about a Zubats to the Pelicans trade if the Clippers are struggling at the trade deadline. I want to briefly pause this real quick. This is so funny to me. I respect this guy. I don't follow this guy on Twitter, but he pops up all the time on my For You page or whatever the fuck it's called. I want to respect him. He's just farming. Every single day, I see this guy, a tweet pop up, something the Rangers did last year in the playoffs. If you need a smile today, and then it'll be a clip from something that happened in the postseason last year. I respect it. I do respect that engagement baiting. So anyways, definitely think there's collapse potential here for the Clippers. I think a lot of things would have to go wrong. But if you came back from the future and said, hey, the Clippers won 23 games this year, and they traded guys at the deadline, I'd be like, wow. Doesn't surprise me that much. The Jazz, they've been this kind of frisky, probably more competitive than they would like to be team for the last couple years. I think this is the year that this has to be the year that they are like, we are going to fucking win 20 games and draft Cooper Flagg. Their ceiling, Larry Markkinen has another all-star level season. 24 points per game, 24.5 points per game, 39% from three on 8 attempts per game in his career with the Jazz. I mean, he's been absolutely awesome. They gave him a big contract. They say that they're going to build around him, and I do believe it. I don't think Larry Markkinen is a real trade candidate unless some team at the deadline says, we can win a championship this year with Larry Markkinen. Let's fucking do it. We'll give you whatever you want. Keontae George hurt his knee last night. It doesn't sound like they're too worried about it. But can he take a leap forward? They started him at point guard last season towards the end of the season. His volume ticked up scoring-wise, but his efficiency did take a nosedive, 51% true shooting percentage as a starter. I think that's very much more of a let's sort of see what we got here and hope for the best thing than it is a guaranteed thing that Keontae George is somebody that they can put as the lead guard and feel comfortable about. I like him. I like his game. But that's very much a wait-and-see thing. I'm more of a believer in Keontae George than I'm a non-believer, but it's not some guarantee. Taylor Hendricks, he made some plays in the preseason game against the Mavs last night. Year 2 for him. Probably going to see probably going to see much more playing time this year. So we'll see what they got from that. Can their offense remain around league average? They were 16th last year. Can they stay around that mark? And best case scenario for them, we talked about this with the Wizards. Can the Wizards maybe have the best rookie draft class? Can the Jazz have maybe the best rookie draft class? They got Cody Williams, Isaiah Collier, Kyle Filipowski. Can those three sort of solidify themselves as the best group of rookies a team has in the NBA? If that's the case, I can see them pushing 30 wins, but I still think that they're going to want to shut this shit down by the end of the season. I really, really do. Here's part of it. Here's part of it. Worst case scenario for them. Team sells. We've seen them do this even when they were competing for a play-in spot. They traded Mike Conley. Did they trade Kelly Olynyk that year too? They traded guys last year. Two years ago. Well, I believe they were actually in the play-in. So we've seen they don't give a shit. Could see a world where they sell. They're kind of running out of pieces to sell, but, does Colin Sexton match their timeline? If the answer to that is no, could see him getting moved. Again, I don't think Larry Markkinen is going to get traded, but it wouldn't be the most surprising thing if a team around the deadline sees Larry Markkinen as a missing piece and decides to give the Jazz whatever they want for him. John Collins, those type of players moved. They bought him out. Here's something that factors into that is somehow, miraculously, OKC has their pick this upcoming draft. It's 1 through 10 protected. So they might need a late season tank. They might need a late season tank to sort of solidify their draft pick. Their defense remains horrendous. I think this will be true. They were 30th in defense last year. I think that stays about the same. And they had the 24th half-court offense. So their offense was league average last year, but their half-court offense was bad. If they play a slower game, could see that. So, yeah, this will be a team that's looking to bottom out for draft capital. Portland Trailblazers, sort of a similar thing. Again, this is like the worst case scenario for this team is they finish dead last. But in reality, you know, they're looking to grab some guys. And they're a team with a young core that if they show some stuff this year and they're able to land a Cooper Flagg in the draft, that's a pretty nice young core for him to tag along with, I think. Believe it or not. Their best case scenario, their young core is healthier. Anthony Simons, 46 games last year. He hasn't played 70 games since 2020. Shaedon Sharpe, 32 games last year. He's already dealing with an injury. Scoot Henderson. Can he show us something? It was a disappointing rookie year for Scoot. But over his last 13 games of the season, 19 points per game, 8 assists, 42% from the field, 39% from three on 6 attempts a game. Again, very small sample size. In March, you really got to take all of those stats with a grain of salt. But can we see something year 2 from Scoot Henderson? That needs to be, fuck the record. Like, that's what they need to see. Scoot, can you show us that you're somebody that we can build around? Shaedon Sharpe, can you show us you're somebody that we can build around? That's literally all that matters. All that matters for them this year. Can their offense be around bottom 10 instead of abysmal? I don't think they'll be a league average offense. I don't think there's any world where they're like a top 10 offense, but can it just not be awful? Can it not just be awful? And if they're somewhat healthy, I think they could have around a league average defense. They were 23rd last year. They go out and get Deni Avdija in the offseason. He's a really strong wing defender. DeAndre Ayton, can he play and be checked in? He's an okay defender when he plays and is checked in. They got Klingon in the draft. Supposed to be one of the best rim-protecting rookie centers in a long time. Robert Williams, can he play some? Let's not forget Toumani Camara was a great defensive rookie last year. Can he sort of grow on that? They could have a pretty feisty defense. Worst case scenario is their young core doesn't show a lot of promise, and now they're really in a fucked up position. Worst case scenario is even though their roster, if you compare it to like the bottom feeders in the East, is better, somebody is going to have to be a punching bag in this Western Conference, and it kind of feels like it'll be the Trailblazers. There's definitely a world where they have the worst offense in the NBA as well as a bottom 10 defense. And just record-wise, bad for them, but this probably is what they might want to do, is a fire sale at the deadline. DeAndre Ayton, traded. Jeremy Grant, traded. Dybul, traded. Rob Will, traded. Could definitely see all of those things happening. And they finish with 19 wins and are really bad. But if they win 22 games... If they win 22 games and Scoot Henderson looks good, fuck it. You'll take that. The Spurs. I wanted to be higher on the Spurs than this. It's just hard. It's hard to get there with how good the Western Conference is going to be. And also, with their record last year, you have to just remember, man, that a team improving like 16 games is really, really rare. Unless they make like ginormous offseason overhauls. Like a team averaging an old Chris Paul or getting an old Chris Paul and Harrison Barnes isn't enough to like improve your win total by 30 games, you know? So my best case scenario for them is 36 to 40 wins, which would be a huge, huge improvement from a season ago. That'd be 16 plus win improvement, which is just hard to see. But again, I could see it. Hovering around 40 wins. And again, in this Western Conference, 40 wins, you're the 10th seed. Even low 40s in wins, even like a game above 500, you're like barely in the play-in tournament if you're in the play-in tournament at all. At least that's how it was last year. Here's the ceiling. Here's the upside. Victor Wembanyama takes a top 5 leap. Really just, what are the odds of this happening? Like 80%? From Christmas onwards. Wemby, 23 points per game, 10.5 rebounds per game, 4.5 assists per game, 4 blocks per game, 1.2 steals per game, 35% from 3 in 46 games, 30 minutes per game. He had an insane first quarter stat line last night. I quote tweeted the stat line. What was it? 11, 5, and 4 in the first quarter. I quote tweeted it and said, gulp. And my God, man, Luka stands, insecure Mavs fans, You guys are getting out of fucking control. And I've seen people tweet out that the Mavs have the worst fan base in the NBA on Twitter, the most annoying one. And they might be right. Honest to God, they might be right. 11, 5, and 4. Oh, in the first half. I thought that was the first quarter. But 11, 5, and 4 in the first half. That's a great stat line to have in the first half. Everyone's like, dude, Luka does this all the time. Luka does this all the time. Okay, guess what? I think Luka's the best player in the world. All right? So, yes, a 20-year-old rookie center or second-year center doing this in the first half is fucking scary to me. On top of being one of the best defenders and somebody who projects to be maybe one of the best defenders in the history of the sport. Guess what? That's fucking scary. All right, I'm sorry. Dude, Luka does it great. I think Luka's the best player on the planet. Do you see why that's scary to me? Do you guys use your fucking brain at all? Honest to God. Why are you asking fans to not be fans? I'm not asking fans to not be fans. I'm asking fans to not be annoying as fuck. That's what I'm asking. Can you not be annoying as shit at any given opportunity? There's a difference between fanning out and just being annoying. Oh, wait. I wasn't done. Stop feeling like victims because someone else talks good about a player. That's really what it is, man. Like, anytime I talk about Wemby or something, I just get shitted on. And it's like, well, Luka does this better. Yeah, do you see the concern? I think Luka's the best player on the planet. So just by nature of comparing year 2 Wemby to Luka is terrifying to me. As somebody who's a fan of the Mavericks, and we have to deal with this demon for the next 10 years. Anyways, can Wemby take a top 5 leap? Can Chris Paul sort of unlock this team a little bit? This is still one of the craziest stats from last season. This is one of the craziest stats from the entire NBA last season. When Wemby played with Trey Jones, 1,288 minutes. When those two shared the floor together, this was a team that was horrible last year. When those two shared the floor together, they were a +5. Not like a plus 0.5, +5. Like that's good. That's just with Trey Jones out there with Wemby. Nothing crazy. Like, Trey Jones is a fine backup point guard. Yeah, he is a really good passer, but just a fine backup guard. When Wemby was on the floor without Trey Jones, this is so insane. They were -15. +5 when Wemby shared the floor with Trey Jones. -15. Just horrendous. Horrendous. When he was off the floor, crazy. Chris Paul is here, point guard. Now, realistically, there really shouldn't be a time when Wemby's on the floor without a really, really strong floor general, whether that's Chris Paul or Trey Jones. Can Devin Vassell play 65-plus games? I'm going to venture to guess no, because he just really can't do it, it seems like, and he's already out until November. So I'm going to guess no on that front, which really pains me because I love Devin Vassell. Here's what they need to shoot for defensively. Can they be a league average defense just in totality, but a top 5 defense when Wemby's on the court? Can they shoot for that? They were 21st in defense last year, but they had a 114 defensive rating when Wemby was on the floor. And in the back half of the season, they were like a top 10 defense when Wemby was on the court. Can they just shoot to be league average as a team defensively, but be elite defensively when Wemby is on the court? Can they trend more towards the league average from 3 as a team? Can they be aggressive at the deadline? Will they make moves at the deadline to try and improve their roster? If they do some of those things, then yeah, they'll be contending for a play-in spot 1,000%. I really struggle to see them improving by 20-plus wins, which is what would have to happen for them to just be like in the playoffs. I mean, they would legitimately, to have like a secure spot in the playoffs, be a 6 seed or a 5 seed. They'd have to improve their win total by like 25 games. Boy, that is a lot. Worst case scenario, I do think there's a world where they're still pretty bad, 25, 28 wins, improve a tiny bit. We're a little disappointed, and they're like the 14th seed. Wemby misses some time, always kind of a concern with him. Or he takes a step but not a leap. Takes a step forward, looks better year 2, but that huge leap doesn't really happen like we expected. Chris Paul looks completely washed and misses time, and that addition just is a wash entirely. 58 games last year, 59 the year before. He's definitely getting older. I just think his veteran presence and being just a floor general will help them out tremendously. But if he looks bad and or is hurt, well. Devin Vassell. Slow to return. Takes a while to get going. Remember, he's already out until November. The team remains putrid offensively. They were second worst in three-point shooting last year. They were 26th in offense, 27th in half-court offense. Chris Paul will definitely help them there. But I don't really see them taking a gigantic leap forward offensively with some of the stuff they did. Like Harrison Barnes and Chris Paul aren't moving the needle that much. And yes, some of their young guys like Devin Vassell's probably going to miss a good amount of time. Sohan offensively looks a little bit rough at times. And there's a world where they look to flip some vets at the deadline. I don't think they'll trade Chris Paul. I think that they just think him being that floor general and that veteran presence is just going to be more important than whatever they get from him at the trade deadline. I don't really know what other vets they would sell. Harrison Barnes? I don't know. The Rockets, one of the more difficult teams to predict. I think a lot of people are maybe expecting this playoff ceiling for them, and I could see it. I could see them being in the 8th seed. I could see them playing in a playoff series for sure. I think their ceiling is 44 to 47 wins, which again, last year, 47 wins last year would have had them in the play-in tournament. But that was just because the West was really strong last year. A couple years ago, 47 wins, you're the 4 seed. So it really kind of depends. Can their defense stay in the top 10? They were 10th last year. This is more important than anything record-wise for the Rockets this year. Somebody has to solidify themselves as the guy. Somebody has to solidify themselves as the guy. Who's he going to be? Is he going to be Şengün? 58% true shooting last season, 21 points per game, 9 rebounds per game, 5 assists per game. Had a sneaky all-star case. Will he solidify himself as build around me, pay me, let's go? Jalen Green. We know he had that 20-game March stretch like he does every year. 26 points per game, 6 rebounds, 4 assists, 38% from 3 on very high volume, making plays that make your jaw drop. We know he did that shit. Will this be the year Jalen Green does that consistently over a season? Because if he does, then he's the guy. If it's another inconsistent season from Jalen Green and then he shows up in March, I don't think you can build around that. The March theorem. Amin Thompson. I do think there's a small chance Amin Thompson takes enough of a leap forward in year 2 that it's like, oh, that might be our guy. That might be the guy that... It's tough to build around a guy like Amin Thompson, but that might be the guy who we call our best player moving forward. Can their offense reach league average or above league average? They were 20th last season. Again, if one of those guys really solidifies themselves, I do think that they'll be around a league average offense. Can Jabari Smith finally become this floor spacing monster that we've been waiting for, that can do some things offensively? They can play small with them. They've already done that. But can he reach a point where he's really punishing teams? He was 36% from 3 last year on 5 attempts. Can he get to 38% on 7 attempts? Can Reed Shepherd win Rookie of the Year? He's the favorite to win Rookie of the Year, I think, currently. He looks good. He really does. He's looked good in preseason, too. He makes... I kind of just... You want to know something, admittedly, and I'll admit this. I did watch him play in Summer League, and he looked awesome. You really can't take too many things away from Summer League. I really thought this was a White thing. And when I say that, I'm not trying to, make any points here. But the reality is when a White guy sort of shows out a little bit, there's an extra level of excitement. That's sort of what I felt like. Reed Shepherd looks really good. But is this oh my God, is this like this White guard who's going to be the next best player in the league type of thing? But he looks actually really fucking good. I feel like Mikal Bridges can't be a number 1 option. You can't build around Amin Thompson. Amin Thompson is much more athletic than Mikal Bridges. I think he profiles to be a better scorer. Even if the 3 ball never gets there, he's a much better playmaker. That's not even a a debate. And also, Tari Eason, really, really good basketball player. Only played 22 games last year. I love Eason, and I love his game. Can he be healthy and on the floor this year? And again, 44 to 47 wins. Whenever I kind of mapped out what I think of the highest win total for a team could be, I did standings-wise use last year's seeding just to sort of see where teams would land. But again, if you win 47 games, last year that was a play-in team. 2 years ago, that was a 4th seed. So it really kind of depends. Their worst case scenario, they're not in the playoffs again. They're not in the play-in tournament again. Their offense remains bottom 10. And this would be worse than anything. You leave the season again going, who is our guy? We have some doubts about Şengün. Jalen Green's nowhere near consistent enough. Amen Thompson, we don't think is ever going to be that guy offensively. Maybe Reed Shepherd shows us enough, but we're not too confident in what we saw out of a rookie season. We can't jump to too many conclusions. And also, here's the fucking Thunder. Here's a little sneaky thing here. Guess who owns their pick? You guessed it. The Oklahoma City Thunder have their pick top 10 protected. So, do we get a scenario where it's March 1st, the Rockets are 3 games out of the play-in tournament, and they're like, dude, fuck this. We need our pick. I mean, it's absolutely insane. It's absolutely crazy, man. That was for the Russ trade, by the way. Ugh. The Golden State Warriors. Warriors fans, they're beating their chest. Buddy Hield hit a 3. I saw a clip a Warriors fan posted. And they said, Buddy Hield self-creation 3. Look at the space he generates. And literally, it was a Tim Hardaway Jr. level shot, Buddy Hield level shot, where he dribbled between his legs, didn't shoot what was a pretty open catch and shoot, decided to do a dribble between his legs and then settle for a contested off the dribble 3 that he did make, to his credit. That is the Buddy Hield cycle. Absolutely the Buddy Hield cycle. But the best case scenario for them, I could see them 46, 47, 48, 49 wins. Steph Curry has a first-team All-NBA season. He hasn't made first team since 2021, but he's still really good. He's still a really, really great basketball player. Can they be top 10 in both offense and defense? That might sound a little out there, but last year they were 10th on offense, 15th in defense. So it's not like really outside of the realm of possibility. Their offseason additions, I sit down and I look at it, and I definitely see a world where their offseason additions really pay off. And we look back at this offseason fondly for the Warriors. DeAnthony Melton did not play a lot for the Sixers. Back injuries, that scares me. But he can provide them with some defense and some ball handling off the bench, which can be really impactful. Can Buddy Hield shoot 40% from 3 with consistency? Does he maybe get some easier looks, knocks down those threes, and isn't a complete and total travesty on defense? I don't know about that second part, but can Kyle Anderson be the stabilizing presence off the bench? Looked unplayable in the playoffs for the Timberwolves, but this is kind of a different environment for him. And he's kind of like a perfect Warriors player, huh? Can we see these young guys take a leap? Will we finally get that Kuminga All-Star level jump that we've been talking about for what feels like 7 years? He hasn't been in the league for 7 years. Yet it feels like we've talked about it for 7 years. 19 points per game last year, 5 rebounds, 54% from the field in 34 games before he got injured. Can Podziemski take another step forward? He finished 5th in Rookie of the Year voting last year. He's improved every single year of his life in basketball. Can we finally get that? Draymond, can he play and not be a psychopath? 55 games last year, got suspended. He's going to be on thin fucking ice. Anything that he does will be under a microscope. Can Wiggins finally have a bounce back season? Or are we just going to say that was an anomaly? That year and a half stretch we got from Wiggins is not who he is at all? Yes. Will Draymond Green attack Rudy Gobert in November and get a 20-game suspension? It's we joke about it, but that's actually something you have to think about. That actually factors into the equation here. If those things happen, they could be a good basketball team, 100%, and a team you don't really want to see in the playoffs. Worst case scenario, I do see a world where they finish under 500 and are the 12th seed. Steph Curry. Not everyone's LeBron James. What do I mean by that? Not everybody ages this gracefully, like I'm going to be a top 6 player my entire life. Right? Steph is obviously not anywhere near as old as LeBron, as Bronny. It's Bron. But he's 36 and will be turning 37 this season. Holy shit. Steph's going to be 37? That's actually nuts. That's actually nuts. I do think he'll be elite, but it's something you have to factor in. He played in 74 games last year. That was the most games he's played in since 2017. The Buddy Hield edition could be a fiasco. I'm here to tell you right now, Warriors fans, if you don't know, now you know. The Buddy Hield edition could suck for you. Could shoot you out of games, play terrible defense. I wouldn't bank on that being like a super positive one. A slow start for them could lead to some weird shit. Right? If they go into December and they're like 4 or 5 games below 500, there could be some weird vibes coming out of Golden State. They could be below league average, both offensively and defensively. Is there a soft rebuild potential here? Is there a soft, let's sort of try to save some money, maybe see what we can get for Wiggins, maybe a team's desperate for Draymond? I think yes. They're an interesting team this upcoming season. The Grizzlies have to be the biggest range of outcomes. Definitely a world where they win 50 to 52 games, and they're a top 3 seed in the West. All they would have to do is just bounce back to where they were before the season from hell last year. 51 wins 2 years ago. That was second in the West. 56 3 years ago. Second in the West. Ja Morant, healthy, plays, doesn't get suspended, finishes top 5, top 6 in MVP voting. Zach Edey, good and impactful as a rookie. They're going to need that. Can their offense and defense both be top 10 this year? In 2022, their offense was 4th, their defense was 6th. 2023, their offense was 14th, their defense was 2nd. You really think 52 wins will put you at 3rd in the West? Last year, it would have had you 4th. And I definitely think there's a world where this conference kind of beats up itself so much that 52 wins could sneak a 3rd seed. I mean, 2 years ago, the Grizzlies won 51 games and were 2nd. In the East last year, 52 games would have had you 2nd. Jaren Jackson Jr., can his defense go back to where it was with a more reduced role offensively and playing the 4? Because last year his defense, 0.8 defensive estimated plus minus. That was the 3rd lowest of his career. Defense was nowhere near the level it was when he won Defensive Player of the Year. A lot of that had to do with the surrounding pieces. He's a shot blocker. So that kind of requires your perimeter defense to be good enough to give you a chance to block shots. That was not the case at all for them last year. But also, too, he had such a big role offensively that it definitely hindered him on defense, and that should at least not be the case. I've said this before. 30% usage rate last year, the 11th highest in the NBA for Jaren Jackson Jr. That's not what you want. Can they finally get some good health luck? We'll talk about that when we talk about the 12th. And can they get to league average from 3? They were 28th last year from 3. They were 12th in 22 in 3-point accuracy. If some of those things happen, or if all of those things happen, they're going to be a really, 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 really good basketball team. Contending for a 1 seed, I think. That's definitely in their cards. I'm not like super bullish about them being the 1 seed, but definitely a top 3 seed. Worst case scenario, 12th. And remember, at least last year in the West, 12th could just mean like a couple games below 500. Like, it doesn't mean that you were trash. It just means that you were like a below average team. Let's just talk about it. They're already fucked with injuries. Jaren Jackson Jr.'s hurt. G.G. Jackson, hurt. Vince Williams Jr., hurt. They're going to miss time. They're one of these teams where it's like, I talked about it at the top. I don't want to. Any team can deal with injuries, so I don't want to just be like, well, if this team gets injured, then they'll be fucked. If this team gets injured, you can say that about everyone, but they will more than likely deal with injuries. Yeah, Ja tweaked his ankle in game 1. It was a weird, freaky injury against the Mavs, but he did tweak his ankle. Came back and then got hurt again. Another worst case scenario thing for them. Is the Steven Adams thing real? During their 2 good seasons, when they were second in the West both years, the team was 6 points per 100 possessions worse when Steven Adams was off the court, and their offense was 8 points worse when he was off. He's gone. That is Zach Edey's role now. He's a rookie. If Zach Edey has rookie struggles, which is incredibly common for a big, that could really hurt them. Will they be a bottom 5 3-point shooting team? Here's the last 5 years for the Grizzlies. 28th last year, 22nd year before, 12th when they won 56 games. 20th, 23rd. They have Bane, they have Luke Kennard. I can't imagine their defense is good. Their 3-point shooting is good, but can it just be around league average? And if all these injuries mean their defense is only top 10-ish, I don't think they'll be a great basketball team. I think the key for them is being a great defense led by Ja Morant offensively. They won't be a great offense, but they'll have Ja Morant, a true MVP candidate, and a great defense. Yeah, that's kind of it, Waco. That's why I've been hesitant on the Grizzlies is we're giving them so much benefit of the doubt. Like, we are. Anyone who's thinking they could be the 2 or 3 seed, which is definitely possible for them, but anyone who's just penciling that in is giving them a lot of benefit of the doubt. A lot. And not to mention how much better the West has gotten just in the 2 years since they have been the 2 seed. The Kings. I do think their ceiling's not that high. I think they could be the 5th seed. I think they could be contending for like home court advantage. Best case scenario. Best case scenario postseason-wise, I don't know. Maybe they win a series if they get a good matchup. I don't see a deep playoff run for this Kings team, really. But what's their best case scenario regular season-wise? Can their offense get back to elite? That was a thing a couple years ago when they were the 3 seed. Again, that 3 seed, you look at it, a lot of their, they won, that year they were the 3 seed. They won 46 games last year. That crazy 3 seed year, they won 48. Right? But the year they were the 3 seed, they had the best offense in the league. Last year, they were 14th. A big reason for that was that they did deal with some injuries. They were very, very healthy a couple years ago, but they finally dealt with some injuries. A big reason for that was they kind of toned down their offense a little bit in an effort to improve their defense. And the best case scenario for them is, can their defense stay around league average? Can they get that offense back to being elite with that defense still staying around league average? It was 25th a couple years ago, 18th last year. So they did sacrifice some offense to make their defense around league average. But if you have the 14, I'd rather have the best offense than 25th best defense than a barely above average offense and a below average defense. Like, you're not winning a lot of games that way. Best case scenario, DeMar provides some much needed shot creation in the starting lineup next to De'Aaron Fox. Because really, especially with Monk coming off the bench, Sabonis, hey, MVP candidate, man. MVP finalist, year in, year out. Defensive Player of the Year, vote getter. Like, we know that. Right? The voters tell us he's a top 5, top 10 player every fucking year, right? But realistically, in their starting five, De'Aaron Fox is really the only guy they can consistently rely on to create offense for himself. DeMar could help with that tremendously. Much needed shot creation. Keegan Murray. Will we see a big step forward for him? He had a huge defensive leap last year. Like, he was pretty good defensively. But offensively, 15 points per game, 35% from 3, had some rough shooting stretches. Can Malik Monk win 6th Man of the Year? Brought him back on what I thought was a great contract for them. He's been awesome for the Kings off the bench. And I do think he'll be coming off the bench. Keon Ellis makes sense in their starting 5. Yeah, De'Aaron Fox got hurt last year. He had a great start to the season and really, really sort of tailed off. I think Fox is the best player. I will always take the guard over the center who can't really play defense or shoot. Fox was dealing with like lingering injuries, I think. He played through them, if memory serves me correctly. I don't think he was like fully healthy. Anyways, those are all best case scenarios for them, where their offense is back to being elite. DeMar provides this much needed offensive creation in the starting five. Keon Ellis and Keegan Murray proved to be like a really good defensive tandem. And those are all things I could see happening, truthfully. Their worst case scenario, I do think there's a scenario where they miss out on the play-in tournament entirely, where the DeMar fit looks really clunky and messes up some of the spacing. You're talking about you have 3 guys now that really operate in that mid-range, with Sabonis, who we know operates at the elbow with the dribble handoffs and stuff. But Fox, who loves getting downhill, loves the mid-range game. That's DeMar's game as well. That's 3 guys in the starting 5 that I don't think really space the floor, and it's not like Keon Ellis is spacing defenses. I don't know. Will their defense fall back to the bottom 5? Because you add DeMar DeRozan, not really known for being a great defender, right? And here's something I wanted to add in. I don't think this could happen, but just something to monitor if they feel like they're not really contending. I don't know who they owe this pick to. I didn't put it in. But they do owe a pick to somebody, and it's 1 through 12 protected. So could this be similar to the Mavs thing a couple years ago, where maybe we could have made the play-in, the Hawks? Okay. Maybe we could have made the play-in, but we'd rather keep our pick. No, not OKC this time. It's not OKC. I don't think they'll do that, but it is something to monitor. You always have to keep that in the back of your mind when teams owe protected picks. So a pretty wide range of outcomes for the Kings. I think a lot of their seeding, because I do think that their ceiling is relatively capped, but I think their floor is pretty safe. Like, as long as they're healthy, I don't see a world where they're like winning 33 games. You know, I think that they'll be worst case scenario like a 500 team. It's really going to depend on the rest of the West. The Lakers, I have the same outcomes for them, 5th and 11th. A world where last year, they were just, they finished with 47 wins last year, which had them just two games out of the 6th seed. If they get 47 to 50 wins again and some things break their way, they could be the 5th seed. They could be around there. Best case scenario, LeBron and AD are as healthy as they were a season ago. LeBron still looks like a top 7 player in the NBA. Anthony Davis is hovering around top 10 player in the NBA status. They get healthy with their role guys. We can shit on the role guys all we want, but they dealt with so many injuries to their rotational players last year. Gabe Vincent missed pretty much the whole season. Jared Vanderbilt missed pretty much the whole season. Can those guys finally get healthy? Their depth is going to be tested, right? Their depth is going to be tested, but those guys being healthy will help them out tremendously. Can Connect. I was looking at their depth chart and stuff. I feel like Dalton Connect's going to be very important for them this season. If he's good and is like efficient from 3, that'll help them out tremendously. Also, too, we joke about this all the time. D'Angelo Russell being the walking human trade exception. They now have Max Christie's in a very similar spot as well with his contract. They are positioned to make a pretty sizable move at the deadline if they feel like one's available to them. So keep that in mind. I know Max is the primary guy off the bench. I'm more saying, like, Connect's going to be big, like, pretty important for them. I think he'll have, at least among teams that are trying to win, Connect will have one of the bigger roles as a rookie in the league. Worst case scenario, LeBron and AD miss time. You did get a very healthy season from those two last year. If we just sort of look at the last 5 years, I think you can kind of expect them to miss some more time than they did last season, right? Which would mean their depth is tested, and I'm not really high on their depth. And there is a world, there's a world where JJ Redick is a shit coach, and just by nature of this being the circus of LeBron team and the circus of the Lakers, if it starts off poorly, it's going to be real nasty. It's going to be real nasty. But there's also a world, and you never know with head coaches, where JJ is actually a genius. And they enjoy playing with JJ. Like, we've heard reports, this doesn't come as much of a surprise, but we've heard reports that it got bad with Darvin Ham last year, and the team was just really out of it. So maybe they're just a little bit more motivated playing with JJ Redick. I'm not entirely sure. And a world where, hey, maybe Dalton Connect just not good. I don't know. You guys know I'm pretty high on this Lakers team. The more I look at it, the more I'm not as bullish. But again, a big piece of it for them is, hey, what if something pops up at the trade deadline and we feel like we can make a big move? Possible. Next, we have the Pelicans. This actually might be the biggest range of outcomes. What is this, 8? One of the weirdest teams in the league still. And look, you have to factor in their ceiling. It is high. It is high. There's a reason why people can't quit the Pelicans. Because when you sit down and you look at their roster and you think best case scenario, which is what we're fucking doing here. This is the best and worst case scenario for every team. The best case scenario is a high ceiling. You're talking 50 wins, 51, 52 wins. Zion played 70 games last year and looked good. And it looked like he was poised to really finally have a playoff moment. He's yet to play in the postseason. He looked so good in those play-in games. Then got hurt. But he did play 70 games last year. Can he be healthy? Trey Murphy and Herb Jones. Will these two finally see the fucking floor more together this year? 914 minutes last season where those two were on the court together. They were +9 in those minutes. That is a scary wing tandem, man. That's size, that's length, that's, in Trey Murphy's case, somebody who can shoot from 30 feet away that you have to be aware of as a defense. Herb Jones' case, somebody who can also shoot a little bit. Herb Jones has more like on-ball skill than I think some people realize. And you're getting Herb Jones, who's maybe the best perimeter defender in the league, and Trey Murphy, who's a very, very good perimeter defender as well. And yes, I've seen the shit that Herb Jones is playing center. We're going to talk about it here in a second. Best case scenario, CJ McCollum goes to the bench. That opens up Trey Murphy and Herb Jones sharing the floor together. And I think that actually works out really well. I think that's better for CJ. This sixth man who can come in, be a microwave scorer. Just play your fucking game and don't have to worry about doing anything else, CJ. Off the bench. This has to happen. Best case scenario, this has to happen. The team figures out a trade for a center. It has to happen. We'll talk about it in the worst case scenario. What you have planned right now is not going to work, okay? It just isn't. We have plenty of basketball history to show us that this is not going to work for you over the course of a season. There might be instances here and there in closing lineups and stuff like that where it's interesting and it works in small bunches, but overall, it's not a recipe for success. They have to figure out a trade for a center. I don't know what it's going to be. Could it be a Clint Capella trade? Could it be an Ayton trade? Could it be the Cavs are kind of middling around the deadline and they want to shake something up? Could it be a Jared Allen trade? Could it be a Zubac trade if the Clippers are sort of struggling a little bit? Do something on the trade market. And DeJounte Murray sort of accepts his role as a point guard and looks really good as a point guard. And not this, hey, I'm taking 15 mid-range shots a game. Good luck, everyone. You want the ball, get a rebound. Worst case scenario, they miss the play-in tournament, 31 to 34 wins. Zion misses a significant amount of time. Have to factor that in. A guy who's been hurt most of his career. Was really healthy last year. Happy for that. But had to factor that in, of course. The small ball is a disaster. We just talked about it. The small ball is a fucking disaster. Herb Jones being the 5. Why it's stupid, on top of Herb Jones not being a center, is if that's what your plan is, when I'm assuming when they're saying that, they're saying like Herb Jones will pick up the centers. You're taking away from Herb Jones' best skill. That's the dumbest shit I've ever heard. It's honestly so stupid. But if the alternative is, well, Zion will play a lot of small ball 5 for us, I do not think his body will hold up. I don't. I think that's a bad idea. I don't like Daniel Tice. I don't like Yves Missy. They have to make a move for a center. They have to. They have to figure something out. Another worst case scenario thing. The Ingram trade situation becomes really weird. And either he ends up getting traded for pretty much next to nothing, or the vibes become really fucked because of it. It doesn't sound like that's the case right now. It sounds like Ingram's there doing his thing. It does sound like he's committed to like shooting more catch and shoot threes, which would be pretty big for that team. But it is something to keep in mind. Their offense is around league average. It was 13th last year. And DeJounte Murray kind of tries to do DeJounte Murray things, and it's clunky. That's what we've seen for most of DeJounte Murray's career. Hawks fans had this debate. Why didn't this pairing work? Let's blame Trae Young. I'm blaming DeJounte Murray. I blame DeJounte Murray for all of that. I think sometimes he tries to do way too much and needs to know his role better. This will be important for him this year as well. So a huge range of outcomes for the Pelicans, as per usual. The Suns, again, high range of outcomes. I've said this on Locked On. I think I've said this on here too. The more I look at the Suns team, I think they're going to be good, and I think they're being a little overlooked and underrated. Best case scenario for them, I could see 50 to 52 wins. I could see them having the best offense in the NBA. They were 9th last year. They had a 123 offensive rating when their big three played together. And when their core 4 guys played together, adding in Nurkic, they were very, very, very good. Very good. And Nurkic, their best case scenario, Nurkic has to be healthy again. He played in 76 games last year. That was the most he's played in a game or in a season since 2018. That was the first time he's played over 56 games since 2019. So you got kind of an outlier healthy season for Nurkic. And it's funny because going into the season last year, I was like, Nurkic sucks. What a bad trade. And I still think your ceiling is capped if Nurkic is your starting center in the postseason. I think we saw a lot of that against the Timberwolves. But they were 12 points per 100 possessions better when he was on the court. Nurkic was last year. He was important for what they did. I think a lot of that was that they sort of lack some playmaking, and Nurkic does kind of provide that from the center position. So I wonder if that'll be as drastic this year with Tyus Jones there. And Tyus Jones being there, starting 5, does that allow Booker and Beal to sort of play their positions a little bit more? They don't have to worry about being point guards. Will the ball pop with his Budenholzer offense? Like, can we see KD shoot 4 catch-and-shoot threes per game? 3.5 last year. Can Booker shoot 3+ catch-and-shoot threes per game this year? 2 last year. Can those guys play off ball a little bit? But we know Booker's more than capable of playing off ball and more than willing to play off ball. KD needs to shoot more catch-and-shoot threes. It's always been kind of a thing for him. Ryan Dunn. His defense looks legit. Can he do enough offensively to warrant playing time? And can their defense be around league average? I think their offense is going to be great. Can their defense be around league average? It was 14th last year, surprisingly, depending on the metrics. Some metrics have them at 12. Those things happen, they're going to be really, really good. Worst case scenario, a little bit above 500, 45 wins. They deal with injuries. Devin Booker, last 4 seasons for D-Book. 68 games, 53, 68, 67. Not terrible. Beal, 53, 50, 40, 60, 57. Been dealing with injuries for the last 5 years. Durant, 75 last year, 47, 55, 35, 0. Getting older. Nurkic, 76 last year, 52, 56, 37, 8. So again, don't want to factor in injuries for every team, but when teams deal with injuries frequently, you have to factor it in. There is a world where their defense is a bottom 10. Like, if we're just going to say Tyus Jones starts, you look at that starting 5 of Tyus Jones, Booker, Beal, Durant, Nurkic, that's not a good defense, right? That's not very good defensively. It's a small team with no real legit go-get-'em defenders, right? And if they take Tyus Jones out, that takes away from your offense a little bit. If they decide to go small with Nurkic, it's a little, it's a little weird. Wicked with the $2. Love you slightly. Appreciate the retweet on my tweet. Of course, man. Love blowing up my followers. Their 3-point shooting from the role players takes a step back. We know how fucking absurd Grayson Allen was from 3 last year. And their depth can be tested. I don't love their depth. Obviously, they're paying their top-end guys so much money that they sort of have to scrape the bottom of the barrel for their depth pieces, and they've done a good job with that. I mean, like, Tyus Jones on a minimum is insane. Plumlee as a backup center, you could do way worse. Monte Morris as your backup guard, you could do way worse. I do think there's a world where they're in the play-in tournament. The Timberwolves, wide range of outcomes here. And let me explain why. So, this is really interesting. There's a lot of models and stuff that I've seen, like season projection models and stuff, simulated models, which don't necessarily mean anything. But there's some models that absolutely hate the Knicks and absolutely hate the Timberwolves after these trades. Very interesting. Giovanni, 7 months, just in, slightly loves blowing his followers. What can I say? All right, let's lay out these scenarios for the Timberwolves. Do think that there's a world where they win mid-50 games, and if the Thunder aren't as great as we think, that could lead to being the 1 seed. Anthony Edwards, playmaking leap. Can we get there? We've talked about it forever. Can we fucking get there? Yeah, his kids per 12 months is shockingly high. It might be the biggest in all of sports. It might be the biggest in all of sports. There's definitely a world. We talked about Cat leaving and what that can mean for their offense, but there is a world where the floor spacing Dante DiVincenzo provides from the guard position ends up being more valuable than Cat. He averaged nearly 9 3-point attempts per game last year on 40%. That volume and that efficiency is nuts. 42% on 8 attempts in the postseason. We know who he is. Good defender as well. Gonna just bomb threes. Just bombed. It goes beyond spacing the floor. He's going to let that fucking thing fly. We know that. And if you factor in Naz Reid and his ability to space the floor and think, okay, well, he can space the floor like Cat did, and now you have this guard that can really space the floor, DiVincenzo, that opens up a lot of things offensively. And that is true. Their defense is best in the league again. Could 100% see this happening. I don't think the loss of Cat changes things too much on that end of the floor. Rob Dillingham, they really believed in him. They traded the few future assets that they had left to move up in the draft to get him. They believe in this kid. Can he be something for them off the bench in year 1? That would be really important for them. Julius Randle. In my brain, I really struggle to see how it works, but he is in a contract season, and he has to know, his agent has to tell him, dude, this would be huge for you. If you go to a new team, a team that's trying to win, and just sort of play your role and fit in and have a really, really good season, you're going to make a lot of fucking money. A lot of money. And I do think, ultimately, they say they're going to start Julius Randle at the 4. Obviously, that's always going to happen. I do think if they end up putting Naz Reid there in that spot to help space the floor and have Julius coming off the bench, I think they could be around a top 10 offense. And if those things happen, they'll be in contention for the 1 seed. On the other end, 8th feels low. This is where a lot of projections have them. It's really strange to me. 44, 47 wins. Mike Conley misses some time. He's 37 years old. By the way, today's his birthday. Happy birthday, GOAT. Happy birthday. Mike Conley, one of my favorite players in the history of the NBA. 37 years old today. He played in 76 games last year. What's crazy about that, you might wonder, that's the most games he's played in a season since 2013. So if Mike Conley misses time, or just maybe looks a little bit older, Anthony Edwards, that playmaking leap is going to have to be real. Because if it's not, well, they're going to struggle offensively at times. Will their defense take a step back? Will this just be by maybe offenses figuring them out, or maybe just the size that Cat provided was really important for their defense, and they're no longer the best defense in the league by far, and maybe they're the 3rd, 4th, 5th best defense? Even a game that's decided by inches, the NBA, the margins are so thin, even a small decrease from 1 to 5 is enough to sort of really lower your ceiling more. Will Julius Randle be a clunky fit? The floor spacing in my brain it's a really strange offensive fit, at least in the starting 5. And Anthony Edwards with Cat on the floor, when those two are on the court together, the Timberwolves had a 121 offensive rating. That's good, but Anthony Edwards without Cat, 113. He needs that floor spacing to operate and do Anthony Edwards things. And Julius Randle just makes it really clunky. And also, Jaden McDaniels, the offensive leap is a myth. I believe this to be true. This is an urban legend. I don't see a Jaden McDaniels offensive leap coming ever. 10 points per game last year. That was down from 23. 33% from 3 last year. That was 6 percentage points worse than 2023. His league average, true shooting-wise, 4 percentage points worse than 2023. He was graded out as one of the worst offensive players in the league last year by most advanced offensive stats. You know, do what you will with those. I just don't really see it. So those things factored in, I could see this being a weird year for the Timberwolves. I don't know. They have a wide range of outcomes, in my opinion. That's why they're first or eighth. I mean, that's big. That's a huge gap. McDaniels is definitely better offensively than Derrick Jones Jr. The Nuggets. So yes, there's a world where the Nuggets win, 53, 55 games, and it's just like, all right, Jokic wins MVP again. It doesn't matter who the fuck is on this team, they're gonna win. It doesn't matter who leaves, they're gonna win. Jamal Murray, the Nuggets people seem to feel very confident that Jamal Murray is going to bounce back, and they should. I mean, he's still young. He's 27, was dealing with injuries last year, sort of tailed off dramatically in the postseason, was obviously awful in the Olympics, but we can just say that he was still dealing with an injury. So if he's back and healthy, that's obviously huge for them. Christian Brown, is he ready to go? If Christian Brown fills in and sort of replaces KCP, then they'll be good. And their depth guys, Strother, Peyton Watson, are these guys ready to take leaps forward? And if that's the case, obviously they have Russ now as well. If that's the case, then they'll be a really good basketball team again. And I do think the narrative has been set up, unfortunately, where if they're mid-50s and wins, Jokic is going to get another MVP. I just think that's it. That might be how it plays out. But there's a scenario, and I do think Jokic is such a high floor raiser that even worst case scenario, I think they're pushing 50 wins in a 6 seed out of the play-in tournament. That worst case scenario being Jamal Murray looks a little bit rough, still looks injured, or deals with injuries throughout the season, and that starts to scare you a little bit. Their depth gets tested and is just not ready. Christian Brown kind of struggles. Strother, Peyton Watson, these guys don't really take the leaps forward. The Nuggets desperately need them to. Zeke Naji remains one of the worst rotational players in the NBA. The Russell Westbrook fit is terrible. And even still, those things happen. I have them like pushing 50 wins because Jokic is one of those floor raisers. Dallas. Do you think there's a world where they're competing for the number 1 seed in the conference? Mid-50s and wins. Best case scenario for our Mavericks. Luka wins MVP. He does Luka Doncic things. I think the main goal and the real hopes would be the volume stats go down just a little bit just because less is being asked of him, while the efficiency stats go up. I think that would be really, really good for Luka just in terms of having less of a load and less of a burden on him. Best case scenario, Kyrie plays 65-plus games, missed a good amount of time last year, did not hit that 65-game threshold. Can we get there? He's somebody who's dealt with injuries pretty much his entire career, not playing due to one reason or another. Can we get to 65-plus games for him? That would be nice. Derek Lively. What does a leap forward for Derek Lively look like? I dropped a video about that a couple of days ago. Make sure you guys go watch if you haven't yet. We still fully don't know. We still fully do not know what a step forward for Derek Lively looks like, what we can fully expect from him. Najee Marshall and Quentin Grimes. One of those two, or both of them, completely erase the concerns about point of attack defense. Definitely a possibility there. Can Klay Thompson shoot 40% from 3 on 8 attempts per game? Can he knock down the open threes he's going to get from Luka Doncic attracting so much attention, from Kyrie Irving attracting so much attention, from playing a 2-man game with those guys? Pick and popping, slipping screens, getting open from 3. Himself running a 2-man game with Derek Lively, or another one of the bigs shooting threes off of screens. Can their defense and offense be both top 10? Last year, they were 19th in defense over the course of the whole season, 7th in offense. Obviously, we know their defense was much improved after their trade deadline moves to grab Daniel Gafford, PJ Washington, some more size. And their offense is number 1 in the league. I do think that they'll have a chance to have the best offense in the NBA. With Luka, with Kyrie, with Klay Thompson, with Derek Lively as a rim running threat, and with PJ Washington being like your 5th best player on offense on the court, that's pretty fucking good. So I definitely think there's a world where they finish with the best offense in the NBA. And if all those things happen, or some of those things happen, you're talking mid-50s in wins and competing for the 1 seed. And we've seen this team, if things aren't sort of shaping up how they want, this is a very aggressive team. This is a very aggressive front office. They'll make moves. You should put best case scenario, worst case scenario in your guess. Well, I'm doing all my predictions next week, so you'll see that next week. Worst case scenario, I still think their floor is pretty high. Worst case scenario, I think they're around 50 wins in the 6th seed. That would be Luka and Kyrie miss time. I mean, that's definitely a possibility. Luka's already dealing with a calf thing that just seems precautionary. Kyrie, Again, we know that he can miss time here and there. Worst case scenario, thing number 2, Klay Thompson is washed. I don't think this will happen, but there is a scenario where, hey, Klay Thompson's just not that good anymore. It's time to accept it. Again, they were 19th last year in totality defensively, although we know they were much better from the trade deadline onwards. Worst case scenario, the Derrick Jones Jr. loss really does hurt, and they're a bottom 10 defense yet again. And the team crawls to the deadlines, needing big moves again. It really feels like the Mavericks have never been a team that gets off to a hot start in the Luka era. It feels like they're almost always entering the trade deadline around 500 and feeling the need to make big moves. My big hope, I've been asked this, what do you think the Mavs need to do at the trade deadline? My hope and dreams this year is nothing. This is by far the most balanced and stacked roster of the Luka Doncic era. I hope we go to the trade deadline just maybe needing some marginal moves here and there. And even then, I think their floor is high enough that they're the 6th seed. I like their depth. I think Luka's a floor raiser 100%. Yeah. And then the Thunder. What really needs to be said about the Thunder? I think best case scenario is they're mid-60s in wins. That's they stay healthy. Shea wins the MVP. This is their best case scenario. Shea wins the MVP. I do think there's a scenario where they're the best offense in the league and the best defense in the league. They were 3rd in offense last year, 4th in defense. Can they improve to league average rebounding? That was their big weakness last year. They were 29th in rebounding. They go out and get Hartenstein. That should help them out tremendously. And Chet Holmgren and J-Dub continue to develop as players. J-Dub was incredible last year. Did tail off in the playoffs, but was really, really good last year. Could see him making an all-star leap. Chet Holmgren was incredible last year. Could see him making an all-star leap. All of those things are true. Worst case scenario, and even in the worst case scenario, I have them 53 to 57 wins. Like I can't imagine anything other than a doomsday scenario for this team where they're like under 50 wins. I really cannot imagine what the fuck would have to happen. But worst case scenarios, they deal with a little bit of injuries, and I don't even mention the injury bug here, but I just have to say it. Last year, rotational players with 20 minutes per game or more for them. Shea played 75, Jada played 71, Chet played all 82, Dort 79, Giddey 80. Obviously, Giddey's off the team. Cason Wallace played all 82. They were incredibly healthy last season, and that doesn't mean that they're going to be unhealthy this year, but it was a reason why they were as good as they were. Another thing is their secondary creation still isn't that great. This is more of a postseason thing for them. For their ceiling to be championship, they need guys like J-Dub and Chet, but mainly J-Dub, to prove that he's really that guy as a second option, because he wasn't in the series against the Mavericks, and it's what ultimately led to their downfall. In worst case scenario, they're still one of the worst rebounding teams. I don't think this will be true with J-Dub in the mix, or Hartenstein in the mix, but you never know. So I cannot for the life of me imagine a scenario, again, where we're not talking doomsday, knock on glass. Shea is missing the whole season and Chet's hurt. I can't imagine a scenario where they're losing. They don't have like 53 wins. Honestly, it's impossible for me to imagine. Impossible. Thank you. Love you. Love you too. Love you more. No, I 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 love you more. Oh, man. That's why this is my favorite stream, I think, of the offseason, because we'll do the predictions next week. But this is where we really dive into the teams, right? This is where we really, really take a close look to figure out what could go wrong, what could go right, all of this stuff. And I need to get the hell out. Been live for almost 3 hours. All right. So next week is the predictions. It's Tuesday. Tuesday we'll be doing Eastern Conference, Wednesday Western Conference, Friday award predictions. I won't be live on Monday. I got plans. I'm going to the State Fair. So I won't be live on Monday. So we'll do Tuesday instead. That's the big one. Hey, that's where I put my money, right? That's where my credibility really comes into play. Anyways, thank you guys for tuning in. If you missed any part of the stream, I'll be uploading stuff onto the Slightly Biased Clips channel. So if you want to go back and you don't want to watch the full stream because we rambled for quite a bit, no, I don't like doing playoffs before the season starts because it's so it's impossible to predict. Maybe I will. I don't know. Shit, Spencer and Hardy might not like each other. I don't care. Thank you all for coming out. All of the OGs. Love you guys very much. Could have spent your Friday afternoon anywhere in the world. You decided to spend here. New subscribers, I promise you guys not regret it. Donations, members, thank you guys so much. You never have to do that, but it helps me out tremendously and it makes me feel so good. You guys enjoy your weekend. I'm hoping I'll be back in time Monday. That's the next time the Dallas Mavericks play for a playback stream for that preseason game. And then we'll be live here again on Tuesday. Love you all. Thank you guys very much. Enjoy your weekends. Be safe. Be smart. Be loyal. I don't even know what that means. Love you all. Bye.